Or gather round, freaks. You thought last month was scary. Well, that book is closed, and we have a new book. The new book is a cryptids book. We're in the woods. We're in a swamp. I'm up to my knees in swamp water here, brother. So gather around your internet fire and your internet radio and ask the same question you have to ask yourself each and every freaking week of the year. That is, hey, did you see this one?
There's something in the woods. Something between the trees. Something in the dark. Underground. Beneath the water. Something in the sky. But what could it be? This month, Hey, Did You See This One? Invites you to stare into the glowing green eyes of mystery, into the mouth of a fanged beast, to hold your breath as you break for the surface, because something is chasing you, and it might just be a crazy cryptid.
Spooky.
Hi.
We're getting a lot of mileage out of that fucking the Halloween version.
The spooky intro. I love the spooky intro music so much that I would put it for every episode, but then we wouldn't get to hear our other intro. So
it's true. Shout out to Josh Howard for two amazing podcast themes. This is, hey, did you see this one? The weekly roundtable review reaction podcast where we take a movie and we pull it apart like the chains on a newly forming Cenobite. Shout out to the beginning of Hellraiser 3. We are entering a new month. It is Crazy Cryptids Month, where each week we're going to talk about a movie that sort of centers around a cryptid. If you call a giant snake a cryptid, that one's
it is.
It is.
Listen, cryptids are just big monsters or weird monsters or things that have urban legends surrounding them. Sometimes it can just be a man who smiles. That's
a smiling man.
Technically, the character of Ingrid Cold in this movie is also a separate cryptid from the Mothman Prophecy, I suppose. But like they just kind of did a mashup. This is a movie monster mashup, guys.
Hell yeah. Which is strange because we've, this year we're going to have this last month, Grimoire Lost Pages, Crazy Cryptids. We're going to take a little break in September, and then October is our actual Grimoire. So lots of, we're slowly turning into a horror podcast.
My plan is coming to fruition to just turn this into a straight up horror podcast. That was my goal from the beginning, and I'm succeeding.
And you were the first episode you were ever on was Jaws, which is kind of a cryptid horror.
Well, it's the only reason I was watching it. I was like, Jaws, a cryptid. I love cryptids.
That's fantastic. This is episode 146, or season 2, episode 46, as I like to think of it in my mind. We are covering the Mothman Prophecies, starring Richard Gere and Laura Linney. And sort of Debra Messing. We'll get to why sort of in a minute. And we are joined this week, returning to the show. Unfortunately, nobody gets bisected by a car in this one. But
Almost,
Almost. Alex Gow returns to the show.
Hello.
Hello, Alex Gow. Thank you for being here on
no problem.
notice.
It's rare that we get a call in the cavalry, but the people that are a cavalry.
Luckily, I saved one of the flares from the Edge episode, and I threw it into the air, and Alex Gow saw it, and he's here.
Actually, I got a call this morning from the call ID said "I cold."
It's so weird too, because we had to do like a special we had to do a special episode earlier this week because I fucked up and couldn't do our Frighteners episode, and then all the rest of the week I'm having this weird vibe, like is something gonna mess up? And then I'm watching this movie going,
I got a bad feeling about this one.
And a giant shadow bat flew at me with its eyes earlier today too. As
Jason was walking to work every
he was walking to work and he ended up in Alberta.
Yeah, and like every stoplight he would see was 2 red lights, and everything would go blurry for a second, and he's like,
Slips were chopped.
Alex, I know that you probably haven't seen this movie in a minute. I'm hoping this isn't too much of a blindside.
Oh no, it's all up there.
But we have a new segment on the show where we start each week now with the guests sort of giving a quick synopsis. Okay. We're going to have a sting for it, but are you able to give a quick synopsis of the film?
Sure. It'll demonstrate my ability to recall this movie.
Perfect.
Do it. Do it right now.
Oh, I was waiting for the sting.
I don't have a sting yet.
Jason
has been just adding segments to the show without telling me, and then being like, "We're gonna add a sting to this," and I was like, "Are we? Do you mean I'm going to add a sting to this?" Because
I just have to ask you to do it. I keep just forgetting to ask you to make one.
Yeah.
All right.
Here's the sting for you. Go ahead.
The Mothman Prophecies. A reporter in DC goes through some tumultuous times. Is living high, living large, and his whole world's turned upside down, and he just can't understand why. And a mysterious turn of events finds him in an unfamiliar place, with seemingly being on the edge of answers to what he desperately needs to know, but always out of his reach. Is that a good synopsis without going beat by beat, or what?
Yeah, no, that's pretty accurate.
He meets a small town cop, and not crazy guy, a crazy guy,
and then he becomes the crazy guy. But it turns out, no, he's not crazy. Everything that's happening is actually happening.
Yes.
Alex, I don't know for sure, but I think the microphone in front of you might not be the microphone picking you up.
Hello.
Oh, sorry. I thought there was one directly in front of you.
There is.
Oh.
No, it is picking you up.
Never mind. It is picking you up.
Hello.
There we go. Yeah. Sorry. That was just a side thing.
Yeah.
My own brain.
I have too much time to do some technical testing here.
No, yeah. You were trying to do it while up the stairs. Being like, all right. Well, yeah, that's the synopsis of the movie. Why don't we get right into our brief histories, I suppose.
A brief history.
And once again, here on Hey, Did You See This One? The guest always gets the first word. So why don't you hit us with your brief history, Alex, and tell us about the first time you saw it, how much you've seen it, and how you're able to answer the call at such short notice to come on here and just know everything you need to know about it.
Well, as is tradition for my appearances on this show, typically I am selected to do a movie that I have not seen in a month of movies that I know quite well. And so when I saw that you were in need of someone who might know something about the Mothman Prophecies, I thought, I know something about the Mothman Prophecies. It's a movie that me and my brother watched a lot. It was it was on the VHS shelf, you know what I mean? And we would just, we didn't like scary movies. And this movie's kind of on the edge of being scary. So it was like, kind of like a baby's first semi-scary movie.
Right. Soft horror.
Yeah. So I've seen it, you know what I mean, a handful of times. It was kind of like a Saturday night watch Mothman with my brother kind of thing. And it's also one that's rooted deeply from quoting certain things a lot. It's like one of those movies where it's like, I don't think me or my brother have said chapstick normally to each other like since 2002. But
it's hilarious. Like I was wondering, I was like, how the fuck does anybody have any of this movie knocking around in their brain other than the last 10 minutes? But you've answered the question. You've watched it a couple of times.
Yeah, for sure.
So much so that you say chapstick.
That's like a thing that you don't really the kids today, they're not really going to have maybe some old Blu-rays on a shelf somewhere in the basement or whatever, but the having a bunch of VHSs that you got for Christmas, like I remember at Christmas time, you just get a bunch of VHSs of whatever came out in the last 6 months, 8 months. And well,
I don't know if your family members were ever like this, but when I was a kid, my parents would do that thing where it's like you get 10 movies in the mail for like 50 cents or whatever, and then you're part of like a movie club where you have to buy a movie every month for a year or something like that, right? And I feel like this would be one of those movies that would get put on that list. Box of movies, and Mothman would be in there.
My mom,
Richard Gere's mailing them out himself.
Yeah, he's wearing lipstick and putting like a kiss on each one.
My mom did that with the CD club, and you're supposed to return them if you don't pay for them. But we just had the MC Hammer album, but when he was just called Hammer, in a drawer for like a decade. And I'd always be like, "There's another MC Hammer CD," and she's like, "I don't fucking know. I just ordered whatever."
Club, it's still got the cellophane wrap on it.
Yeah, and the Butthole Surfers was another one.
Oh yeah,
Steve, what's your extremely brief history with the film The Mothman?
So when I was excited for this movie in theater. It was when I first just started getting into horror, where I'd finally sort of like broken that fear within myself, where I'm like, I'm ready to go see horror movies in theaters. I can do it. I'll go with some friends, and if I get freaked out, it's fine. Nothing's gonna happen. No Mothmen are gonna come for me on the way home. And I remember seeing it in theater and just being like, what the fuck is this? And then waiting for a Mothman. You get one Mothman, and then you get a little bit of a shadowy Mothman, and then you get a weird man. He's like, he looked like a man, but he was weird. And so by the end, I was like, are we not going to get a full fucking Mothman here? Like, I want a Mothman with like one of those moth wiener mouths coming for people. The answer was no. So I remember being pretty disappointed leaving the theater. And I think I've watched this one other time since then, and it just it doesn't really resonate with me that much. We'll get into it when we talk about the movie, but I don't have the fondness that you have for it, Alex, where I would watch the Mon Man with every
Mon Mothma.
Yeah, Mon Mothma.
The Moth Mower Man.
On Mothman. And then today I watched it today, and I'm glad we ended up finding you, Alex, because I did not want to have to watch this again at the end. So that's my history.
Fantastic. I literally also just watched it yesterday/today. I need to ask you guys about something though. I remember when this movie came out, and I definitely have it mixed up with something else. Is there a movie that's like this, where there's like you see something and then it's an omen that involves an owl, a white owl? Was that?
Yeah, we watched it on this show. It's called The Fourth Kind.
So The Fourth Kind.
We did that on this show.
The Mothman that's what I thought. And the Mothman mixed up in my head, because I went into this, even though we did The Fourth Kind, and I just Googled and saw The Fourth Kind. I just wanted to double check with my homies, but I thought
it wasn't even that long ago. But I mean, it was such a bad.
We do a lot of
movie that I get.
We do a lot of movies, but in my head, all through the 2000s, I thought that was an element in this, to the point that I was watching it going just so confused. The movie's confusing anyway. Where's the owl? I thought an owl was supposed to like be the thing that predicts the omen. And then when I realized that that's a different movie completely, I was like, oh, doesn't the Mothman show up way more in the Mothman prophecies to indicate, you see, because the lore goes with the Mothman is you see the Mothman, and that's supposed to be indicative of a looming tragedy or a looming catastrophe, which in this one, it's not that. It's a cool set piece, but it's not a huge catastrophe. It's a small town. 7 people died or whatever. I mean,
that's a lot of people.
Not if
to
lot of
Mothman
people.
has anything to say about it.
he would have had 37th person. But yeah, it's a very brief history to the point that I thought it was a different movie completely that I've already seen.
Yeah, a movie
recently.
that you watched not even that long ago. That's funny. Right.
Yeah. So, do we want to talk about the director a little bit?
Okie dokie. He's in this movie, you know. Did you know he's in this movie?
All right. Quiet on set. Are we rolling? Okay, let's shoot this piece of
Sound. Speed. Action!
That's right. This is the director of this film, of course, is a man by the name of Steve. Help me out.
His name is
that German?
Mark Pellington.
Steve, help me.
Right. Steve, help me out. Mark Pellington.
Yeah.
Written by Richard Hallam. And
He's directed a lot of stuff.
John A. Keel. Yes.
Anything
Not a lot of
good?
stuff I've seen or
Yeah.
consider to be great, but he's delivered
Almost
many things
Famous is probably his biggest movie that most people would know, I would say.
Kind of like the director.
The director is the
He's almost
out of
famous.
place bartender when he gets the message from Mr. Cold telling him to go home or whatever. The bartender who you're like, it's such an odd choice for this man to be the bartender here. Like he just kind of like looks too unique, you know, for the situation. He's extremely tall. He's extremely big in terms of like his girth, and he's got like a magnificent hair. And you're like, what? Who is this bartender? Like, I feel like there's a real story behind this guy. Is he the Mothman? But it's like, no, that's just the director making his little cheeky cameo.
Something just connected for me. There's a reason why this movie is so weirdly stylized. This guy has directed like 4 million music videos.
Yeah,
Ah.
you can tell. Right off the bat, like as soon as we get the title card of the movie itself, it just turns into a music video until they're in the house. And the editing in this is very reminiscent of music videos in a lot of ways for a lot of the movie. And there is a disjunct sort of storytelling element where in music videos, if you're doing a music video that's telling a story, you know exactly how much information you need to put forward for the story to make sense, because you're not sitting there and stewing and having dialogue moments. And I feel like that's like his way of editing this movie as well, where he's like, all of a sudden, smash cut to he's having a conversation elsewhere after like something crazy happens. And we'll have like a weird transition where, like the fur on a dog goes up or something. That'll be our transition. You're like, what?
And so the Mothman you only really see in this movie like once or twice, but you see a lot of what I presume is supposed to be the point of view of the Mothman, you know, like flying up or flying over. Or there's a scene where Richard Gere is just like standing in a park and you just get this long like zoom in from behind. That's very music video, but also an interesting way to show that the Mothman is sort of a ethereal being, an omnipresent, omniscient being that's sort of stalking a lot of the time, which I think was an interesting way to do it. But in a monster movie, typically, I think you should show the monster.
Well, this isn't really a monster movie because the idea behind the Mothman is that it is always there. It's not stalking you. It's just there, and it can see you no matter what you're doing. Like the telephone call halfway through the movie is, it doesn't even need to see what you're doing to know what you're doing. It's just everywhere, all knowing, all at once. It knows you're holding chapstick. It knows what's inside the book because it's already seen it, because it knows everything. It's kind of like a multi-dimensional creature that can just...
It feels almost like a natural force.
Yeah. It's experiencing the world in a completely different way than we are, where it just, you could call it fourth dimensional or whatever, where it's like, oh yeah, I know what's in that book because I already read that book and will read that book, and I'm always reading that book at all times. That's why I know what's in the book. Which is a very confusing way to think about something, because we can't really comprehend that level of awareness. But also, in terms of making a movie, how do you portray that? Pretty much impossible. You can't really do it.
You put on a crazy filter and have it look at people.
Yeah. Slow-mo filter.
But I think, in terms of adapting a novel that probably gets a lot more on the page in terms of what people are experiencing than we can in a movie, I think it accomplishes certain goals. And I do think that, like, up to a certain point, it's a very competent mystery, science fiction, horror mystery movie. It's doing what it needs to do in order to keep you engaged and interested. And there's enough intrigue for about 50 minutes, and then it just starts to get very weird. What the heck?
Also, shout out to a new viewer. Howdy, guys, from Gary Karate. Hello, Gary Karate.
Hello, Gary Karate. I don't have much else to say about Mark Pellington, because
I'd like to say that he directed the music video for Crystal Waters' Gypsy Woman, which is a fantastic song, and also a song that I will be looking up directly after this by a band called Whale, called Hobo Humpin' Slobo Babe.
Yeah, there was a couple weird. I was just scanning his IMDb, and there was a couple weird.
Rooster by Alice in Chains.
Yeah, I saw one with it was like Michael Jackson and T.I.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
How did they exist in the same?
Yeah, a couple of them were. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, he did some Nine Inch Nails, right? In fact, this movie is bookended by a Flaming Lips music video and a Nine Inch Nails music video.
Mark Pellington loves a focus ring. I'll say that.
Booked one more time by Bruce Springsteen and Alice in Chains again. Like it's all music videos. The Best of You music video for the Foo Fighters. Like I've never seen. We've covered directors that do primarily music videos, but this guy's clearly blows that out of the water.
He's probably pretty good at his job, or he probably lives in the music world more than he lives in the film world, so he's got that connective tissue. But also music videos, some people, you get paid a lot of money to film music videos, so it's like,
and
why
it's a lot less of an investment emotionally, I'm sure,
and time wise.
I mean, it could be just that he made a bunch of music videos and was like, wow, I'm great at this, maybe I should direct a movie, and then he directed a movie and he's like, you know what, it's like, why not go back to
Spike Jones
videos?
Yeah, I don't really like
Spike Jones is like that, right?
There's plenty of directors that start in music videos and commercials and then move on to long form storytelling that are great at it, and then there's some that aren't as good at telling a fleshed out story that's 2 to 3 hours long, and so they'll go back to doing commercials. But again, it's like, in terms of money, it's very lucrative to make commercials and videos compared to movies.
I'd also like to make a programmer's note. Almost Famous is a Cameron Crowe movie. He's just in it. He's just in.
Okay. I was gonna say, I was like, that
doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
That's a very famous movie directed by a famous director. Cool. That's pretty much it for him. Also, for me, if you have anything else to add, Steve or Alex, about
never heard of the guy.
Yeah, because he's only directed 2 movies.
Yeah.
He was additional crew in Jerry Maguire.
I just noticed that. I just saw that. This movie was written by Richard Hatem and John A. Keel. Richard Hatem, let's see if he's known for anything else. Yeah, he's produced a bunch of stuff. He wrote a bunch of. He's known for Titans, the TV show about the Teen Titans. He's written 49 episodes of that.
Great TV show.
I can't tell if you're.
I hate that show so
much. The Batman
Okay.
Prophecies.
I think my my main takeaway from that show was that the dialogue sounds like a 60-year-old
Fuck
man.
Batman.
The 60-year-old man wrote dialogue for a 23-year-old boy when he's like, and then Batman showed up and he just started thrashing ass.
That's probably what actually
I'm like,
happened.
what the fuck?
It's possible that the same writer of this movie wrote the line And then Batman showed up and he
And just
thrashed
starts
ass.
thrashing ass. I'm like, I don't think anyone has said thrashing ass before like that. That show. Anyway,
I watched it. I watched so much of it up until the most recent season. I fucking was like, I can't watch this shit anymore.
hey,
Yeah.
that's
Let's
okay.
talk about. Let's talk
It's
about
called growing
the,
up, Jason. It's called
hey.
growing up.
Yeah, sometimes you grow up in your late 30s, and that's when you get around to growing up.
You're
Speaking
midway through season 3 of Titans. And wait a minute.
I'm a man now.
Is this bad?
What have I done? I know so much about the goddamn Titans.
Oh no, I'm
I've,
gonna be late for
thrashed
Deadpool
enough
3.
ass. It's time to settle down.
Okay.
Do we want to get into the old body?
Yeah, let's talk about the body of the album.
The body of the episode.
That's right. This is the body of the episode where I will run down various parts of the movie and we will discuss based on our thoughts and our reactions. The movie basically opens with John Klein, played by Richard Gere, and his wife Mary, played by Debra Messing, house hunting. And on their way home, Mary swerves the car to avoid a mysterious figure, and they crash into a tree.
Wow, yeah, that all happens.
Yeah.
I think that like there's this little brief moment at the beginning that I guess just shows who he is, where he's a reporter of he's a journalist, and he's like the star reporter of whatever newspaper he works
Seems
for.
like he does politics.
Washington
mostly.
Post.
It's the Washington Post, yeah. And he has a boss who is like, I don't know, I guess like somebody's like, oh, what are you talking about? You gotta come to the Christmas party. What are you talking about? And he's like, I can't. I gotta go have sex with my wife in a house we don't own yet. And you're like, oh, okay, I get it.
She is hot.
They paint a lot about him pretty quick though. It's like they show he's reliable because his buddy asks him for like wording advice right away. And then his boss he's like cool with his boss, which I think you need a certain level of competency in a big operation like that, where the boss is just like, come on.
Yeah.
What's
it going to look like if my star report?
And then it seems like he's there late. So he's definitely kind of in it. He's serious about it, but he loves his wife more.
Is it
They
the
do a
same
good
guy?
job of selling their relationship.
Is it the same guy later in the movie when Richard Gere's freaking out and he's like, "Oh, you can't go there. Everybody's gonna die." And he's like, "You're fucking up right now." Was that the same guy?
No,
because that line was fucking killed me. I laughed
it's a different
out loud.
person. That's the guy that he's interviewing, or he's sent to interview.
You're fucking up right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with Alex. It definitely gives you an idea that he's sort of like knowledgeable. He's good at his job. He's reliable, and he's also a professional. But he's also not willing to put his family life before his work. So you do get sort of a well-rounded idea of who he is. Where obviously work is important to him, but his family is more important. I also wrote down, as soon as I did, like, getting real music video vibes out of this. I'm like, okay, now it makes sense. Now that we've looked into
well, I wrote, I find when opening credits are like this with a small montage and a song, it feels like television, which this movie has almost like it kind of feels like it could be a TV show a little bit. It's got that sort of
small anthology series condensed into a movie.
Yeah, in fact, make this movie shorter and give me more. Let the director cook a little bit with other stories and give me an anthology, and just shorten the Mothman Prophecies segment, because this didn't need to be. There's a lot of directorial like wanking in this that could probably be
okay.
Probably. Look, I'm reviewing.
I would argue that there's not enough in this movie. I need the movie to be like an hour longer for me to fully fucking understand what's happening. Because I'm like, they really wrapped that up quickly. I think I need more information.
Good exposition dump from the crazy guy midway through the movie.
It's 45 seconds long, and you're meant to fully understand what's happening, and you don't. And then there'll be like a montage that's 2.5 minutes long of him driving around.
Artistic shots of him going like this.
Yeah, we're looking at a hole in a wall and seeing a scene from earlier, like
or holding a phone like this away from his ear.
Now, in this entire scene, you're going to be on the ground in your socks, only your socks. All right, Richard, go for it. But why? No need to answer that question at all.
You
But
can
then
know
there's-
why, or you can die.
Yeah. Do you want to know the truth, or do you want to
I
live?
want to live.
the song and the score around the start of the movie is good, but it sort of takes a back seat to this
I don't know.
weird.
It feels a lot like late 1990s coffee shop music.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, where it's like bordering on like Enya with like house music mixed in. I'm like, I don't know if I like this.
What ended up happening for me is this is a weird thing that doesn't like. I was engaged. I was watching the movie, but my eyes were so heavy, dude. My eyes, like I basically had to be like this. I don't know. I don't know if it's the movie's not like the movie's a little boring at times, but it doesn't like outstay its welcome.
It's very
I
calming.
just exactly. I feel like if I was to watch, I was sitting up at my desk at work during my lunch breaks in the last 2 days, right? So I was trying to put it into my brain, and I was fighting to keep my eyes open. If I had put this on at home, I'd just go out. I'd just be out like a light. And it's not the fault of the content of the movie. It's because of the like sound design and the like weird artistic swooshes that can happen all.
Yeah.
Just made
It's taxing. It's taxing on your eyeballs.
yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't know if I necessarily agree, but I can understand it for sure, because there's certain camera tricks that can be nauseating for me, even where I'm like, oh, it's like I'm watching someone else play Mario Kart, and I'm like, no, I need to have the controller or not watch this.
Yeah.
But we're then introduced to the world's creepiest real estate agent. I don't know if you guys agree with me or not, but he's a weird.
They had to shoot him from below because he had his hands in his pants the whole time.
Yeah, they're like, stop touching. It's like, no, I'm just playing with some change. Just playing with some change in my pockets. But he like, he has like this ominous delivery of like, you have to buy it today or else, but take your time, but don't. I'm gonna need an answer within 15 to 20 minutes.
And they're like, hold on, we gotta see if we can bang in this closet right quick.
Which then made me be like, have they had sex in like multiple houses that aren't theirs? It's like, we gotta test out the closet. We need to have sex in the closet, and then we'll decide.
And then he walks in on them, and instead of being like, oh, sorry, he just like stares. I would say that the guy's a creep.
He's a fucking pervert. And then they close the door and presumably finish the job. I don't know.
Yeah, finish. Also, though, they see a moth here, which, kind of heavy-handed foreshadowing, but an interesting way to foreshadow, I suppose. Moths live in closets. It's a huge moth.
Yeah, I think it's also just the movie telling us that the Mothman is already watching them. Like, hey, the Mothman is already watching these guys.
Well, they see the moth, and then they see the man. The man opens the closet.
Yeah,
Mothman.
He's the man. This is the moth. They fuse together and turn into like a Jeff Goldblum from The Fly situation. Yeah. He also says, "I'm sorry, but you have to buy the house once you fuck in the closet. Those are the laws of property ownership."
Yeah.
That's a line, right? Or did I just make that up? I can't remember.
I think that was.
I think that was in it.
It's real estate law.
I think that was in the director's cut.
Oh yeah, I watched.
It was a music video. The director's cut was a music video.
Yeah, it was 3.5 minutes long, and it was just that.
The Smashing Pumpkins song.
Tonight, and it's just them banging in a closet.
No, it's just all about the real estate agent, and it's them.
Yeah.
It's them having sex in several different closets across a whole bunch of different homes that they don't buy.
Steve and I were talking about how Richard Gere has just like looked the same through time and space, which is true. This movie, he's ageless. He's like a Robert Redford kind of being, where he just looks the same all through his whole career till that last like couple of years. Now he looks old. I think Richard Gere's still alive.
Yeah, he's got
presumably.
kind of I think he's got a bit of the Steve Martin situation where he was gray a bit earlier, and then just.
Yeah, that's what
I mean. He probably went gray when he was like 35 or 40, and then was just handsome enough that just worked for him for
man hunk.
A good 30, 40 years.
Well, some people look better with gray hair, right, than they do with
Richard Gere probably does. Actually, if he looks, I'm sure if I looked at him young, I would think that he always looked good. But
I made a note that Debra Messing was a relative unknown at this point. She was just on Will and Grace, which was like a pretty new show at the time. I think that show started towards the end of Friends, which this is 2002, is probably around for a couple of years at this point. But she has always looked kind of the same too. She's, you know, she kind of skews looking young, but she matches the energy, even though these two characters are very different in age, clearly, and presumably they kind of have the same energy. And I kind of made a note about how movies, this genre of movie, the demographic is for people who were like 45 to 65 during this time, which would be
why
like,
don't you go back in time and tell that to 14-year-old Steve who was excited to see it in the movie theater?
but didn't you also historically watch this movie going, what the fuck am I watching?
Yeah, but the advertising made me think it was going to have a Mothman everywhere.
But it feels a lot like those, like Robert Redford, Richard Gere movies from like the early 90s. It's got that weird like suspense thriller feel to it that, you know, it just didn't resonate with me at the age that this movie seemingly was directed at for people then. Because if you were 45 in the early 2000s,
typically I prefer this style of pacing in a movie. So the first, like I said, the first 50 minutes of this movie, I think, is really well done, and the pacing is correct, and the editing is good, and it accomplishes all of its goals. I think it's just after that point is when things start to fall apart for me, and it has nothing to do with it being this genre of storytelling. I think that for me, I typically like thrillers and mysteries that keep the mystery throughout and then, you know, make things a little bit more intriguing and exciting as they go, which this movie tries to do. It's just that the reveals and the mystery solving is not as satisfying as I think I'd like it to be. And the stuff that you're getting out of it is so strange and weird. And if you're not familiar with lore, and if you're not into sort of the character development, it just doesn't reach the goal for me in terms of having it be like a great movie. So yeah, I mean, sure, I guess you could say that these types of movies are aimed at an older audience, but I think it's just like a testament to being able to hold an audience and have an intriguing story, whereas this does up to a point. It is kind of like the treacherous territory of a mystery or a thriller, where it's like we're getting to the point where things are going to start being revealed, and you've got a movie like, I don't know, like The Bone Collector or Skeleton Key, or, you know, Seven or something like that. Seven is kind of a bad example because of it has such a distinct visual style and storytelling style that is like constantly invigorating to your eyes.
I think it would be a more interesting movie if you swapped out the Mothman for like an overbearing boss that's trying to date Debra Messing and like accidentally kills her on the job, and then Richard Gere is now in a revenge film trying to like get revenge, instead of it being like a sci-fi horror thing. I think it would have been that's sort of what I was getting at. Like, it feels like one of those movies, but then it's a fantasy sci-fi horror thing, and I think that's why when it changes from mystery to horror, it just kind of is a jarring change of vibe. I think is what I was kind of trying to get at, if that makes sense. It just,
yeah, I mean,
the way the movie looks and feels at the first half when it's just a mystery, it could, you know, Injured Cold could just be some weird guy, you know.
But I mean, like the mysterious elements at the beginning of this movie are the most intriguing parts, and they are supernatural, and they are mysterious and kind of horrifying when you think about it. Like when he goes to Gordon's house and Gordon accuses him of being there twice already, it's freaky because he's like, no, it was you, I know it was you. And I like, if you put yourself into that position for a second, having just entered into a weird town you've never been to, and having somebody be absolutely 100% certain that you've been there 2 nights in a row the previous 2 nights, that's scary. It's like X-Files shit, you know?
Yeah, and
there's like
it's also that, like, he's like, okay, well, this crazy guy put me in his bathtub with a gun, so, and I know I wasn't here, but then when he finds out where he is, then he's just like, oh, holy shit, like,
yeah,
what?
Wait a minute. And also, like, you know, when he's being driven back to the police or to the motel by the sheriff, is she a sheriff or is she just a cop? I can't remember. But she's like, no, I've known these people for like 20 years and they're completely fine, normal, church going. Because, you know, people who go to the church, they could never be crazy.
They could never be crazy.
They would never say anything crazy. Yeah, I don't know. This is why I'm kind of having like a tough time seeing. I understand your point, but I'm not necessarily agreeing with it, because I think that the supernatural elements at the beginning of the movie, to me, are the most intriguing. This is the parts where I'm like, oh, I don't remember this stuff. This is sick. I love this. This
The
is
time I was
kind of
going to
freaking
say
me
that
out a little bit.
the time dilation element of the movie makes my imagination run wild, because was he going there? Had he been there and not remembered, or is it all things that are happening that people are perceiving to be happening but not really? Because like, what are the rules? Once again, I'm a little bit tripped up on what are the fucking rules of the Mothman.
Yeah, I think that the way I interpreted it is that the Mothman has sort of this swash effect because it's affecting the entire town, right? But because they're multidimensional and they exist outside of time, they're able to, when they're present, they're experiencing all of the town's experiences over the course of forever, if you want to say. But they're also able to then manipulate people's experiences as well. So Gordon, though he's experiencing a straight line of time of 3 nights in a row, he's getting the same Richard Gere every night showing up, and he's just having 3 different interactions with him as like multiple versions of what could happen during that interaction, right? So Richard Gere does show up there 3 times. It's just the 3rd time he shows up, he's had enough, pulls him inside, puts him in the shower, whereas the other 2 nights he just shoot him off and he left.
Yeah. Can I get a theory corner?
I suppose.
So they talk about this chemical plant in the city quite a bit. I'm thinking gas leak. I'm thinking chemical.
Whoa, rational explanation.
Are you looking for rational explanations in this movie? I thought you were going to be like Ninja Turtles exist underneath the streets of Virginia.
How much chemical gas do you got to inhale to see Richard Gere before you ever meet him?
I don't know. Maybe we're watching a lot of those movies I was talking about earlier, where a scorned lover has to get revenge on a moth. I don't know why I wrote this, but a fucking Mothman brain damaged my wife. I just wrote that.
Gordon keeps falling asleep watching Pretty Woman, and
yeah,
the gas is.
You've been here 3 nights in a row, Gere. He's like, my name's Klein.
The scene where he's like closes the box on her hand. She goes. Sticks with him. Actually, that's funny because Debra Messing kind of looks like a Julia Roberts. She's got red hair and green eyes and is very pretty. You know, like
you and that lady keep showing up here every night. And he's like, "What lady? Julia Roberts. I know she's
the hooker.
Get out of the bushes,
Julia. You and that prostitute keep showing up. You keep trying to Pretty Woman that whore, as he keeps saying. I've always also been watching a lot of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Yeah, she does survive the car crash and everything, and yeah, this is sort of where the Mothman enters. And Mary's hospitalized. The doctors discover an unusual brain tumor, and before she passes away, which she does, I wasn't expecting that, she starts sketching these eerie drawings. So she's not in Virginia, so I guess that debunks they're still back in DC when she's in the hospital.
Yes.
So that kind of debunks but they were in Virginia to find the house.
No.
That was in DC.
It was all in DC, yeah.
Okay.
Your theory holds no water, Jason.
What are you talking about?
It's not like, gas tight.
Yeah.
It's gas tight. It's Ninja Turtles. I think that the Ninja Turtles came and they were bonking people on the head, and there was a rift in they went to Dimension X.
And Richard Gere was there. No, Alex's theory makes more sense than yours. That he was just watching Pretty Woman.
Gordon's such an unreliable narrator that.
The movie. I mean, I think by the end of the movie, us as an audience has to accept the fact that the Mothman is real and that everything that's been happening in the movie is actually happening. It's just a point of trying to figure out what makes sense in terms of timelines and things interacting and not being woven in a straight line. You know, like things like the fire chief getting a message from him in the future, like from the future, that it is actually him, but he doesn't make the call because he then knows about the call. So it like messes with the timeline. It's all this like weird sort of time dilation. which is one of the issues I have with the editing later on, is it's so disjunct and fractured that it actually makes it difficult to follow. But it also seems like that is the intention of the filmmakers. They're like, no, it's supposed to be difficult to follow because he's not even able to follow it in the movie.
Yeah.
And but like it's so taxing that you kind of just like you start to turn off your brain and you're not really paying attention anymore. You're just like, all right, let's just ride this out. I remember there's a horrible bridge accident at the end. We'll just get to the bridge accident and I can turn this off.
Also, after watching 3 horror comedies in a row for the end of last month, this one was comically bleak. Like comically like a slog for you're just you're feeling like shit emotions. It's just a 1-2 punch of like his like brand new, they were clearly super in love. She does have a fucking freak brain tumor while basically screaming a Mothman did this to me.
And she's like, I think I'm not okay or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dave Mader might be experiencing Mothman issues. He saw this movie in 2002 and now he's being haunted by the Mothman.
Dave is inside of a CAT scan machine right now.
holding a chapstick.
Sir, how did you get that in there? No metal inside the big magnet.
And then total gut punch because they sell their relationship very well. They have a lot of chemistry. They're very functional. You can tell that they're like successful in their own lives, but successful as a couple. And then she's laying in the bed and she's taking responsibility for her illness.
Yeah.
She's
so
basically
unfair.
doing an exact, that's exactly what my wife does whenever she's even vaguely sick.
I'm
she's
sorry.
lying in bed. I'm so sorry. I just want you to be happy. Like she's going to die.
She's scrawling these like
yeah. Oh yeah. And that orderly who's like, she knew she was drawing angels, and then you look at the book and you'd be like, "These look like angels to you?" Like,
but also, was that an orderly or another patient? Because I couldn't really.
No, it was the Mothman.
Yeah.
He was
put a guy's skin on like clothes, like in Men in Black.
Yeah.
I'm definitely a real human.
I mean, the movie is filled with these weird moments of extras that are just like, it's too much. Like she was drawing angels, and then he looks and it's like, those are not angels. And then he like lifts up his arm and he's got an angel tattoo, but it's all like scribbled black, like ink, like all over. Like, look, I have a tattoo of an angel on myself right now. It's like, and then he vanishes. So you're like, who? Spooky. Like, but he probably just left, right? He's looking at through his.
I'll let him have a moment.
Yeah, but the movie makes it seem like he was a ghost or something. Okay.
Yeah.
And then later on, when he's looking in that hole in the side of the factory, it's like shaped sort of like a guy, and then he appears inside of it and says the same line again. And I'm like, what is this? What is going on? But again, I think it's supposed to be like, it's based on a book, so there's probably all these little moments in the book that are probably extremely powerful. And they're like, how do we accomplish showing this without telegraphing it or breaking it down into an actual scene of dialogue? And it's just two talking heads. We've got to make it interesting. So they do stuff like this that it doesn't match up with anything else in the movie. It's just there for a moment. It's not like he's having moments like that throughout, but it's also playing into the idea that like the past and the future and the present are all happening at the same time for him. So like, again, it just ends up coming off as slightly confusing or pointless. It doesn't really add anything. It's not like he goes back to that hole over and over again and gets wisdom from the angel man that was in the hospital. It's like, why are you showing this to me?
How long is this movie if you edit out all the parts you've already seen and all of the like artistic parts?
If you edit the parts that they show twice. I was going to be like,
that
would make it 0 minutes long.
Yeah. 42 minutes?
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm thinking. Every time they did like a flashback or like showed a bit of a scene that already happened, I was like, move it along.
The runtime's what, 2 hours? I would say
it's like an hour 59. Yeah.
I would say conservatively there's 14 minutes of footage of a road reflecting a traffic light in the rain. Like a wet road. There's a lot of wet road in this movie.
Yeah.
I love this movie, but there's a lot of wet road.
There's a lot of wet road. Yeah. It holds the Hollywood record for most wet roads.
Yeah.
In a horror science fiction mystery.
For sure. Outside of the wet road genre.
Yeah.
Sir,
It's a real genre, Jason. Don't laugh.
Yeah,
that tickled me. There is a 2-year time jump, which I wasn't expecting. That's a weirdly specific amount of time to jump, not like 6 months later. It's like 2 years later, and John is still very much mourning Mary's death. He discovers her sketches and begins to question their significance.
I think the reason for that time jump is to show a few things about him as a character. I think it's also to line up so the events of this movie happen on Christmas. So it's like, because she dies, I think, on Christmas Eve, and then
it's a subverted Christmas. Remember a couple of years ago we did like Lethal Weapon in that. You could add this to the pile. Don't dismiss the subversion.
Don't dismiss Christmas. Never dismiss Christmas.
But yeah, you're right. There's even a part where like a friend was like, "Why don't you go on a date with this nice Goyle?" And he's like, "Nope, I'm still mourning the loss of my late wife."
No one's gonna be like your wife. You got to do something.
Yeah, I think that they're like, what's an appropriate amount of time for somebody to maybe have started to move on, and they
want them to still feel the sting, but still set up the kind of chemistry with Laura Linney.
Yeah. Which I kind of ship them. I was like, they should end up together, but maybe not on camera, which they don't, luckily. But I did get their chemistry was pretty good. I thought they acted off each other well, and also those are two believable characters that I think would gravitate towards each other, because she sort of plays she's sort of the Scully, she's like, none of this is happening, this shit's not real, and by the end of it she sort of comes around, and he goes full Mulder. This is very much an episode of the X-Files in a lot of ways.
I think the performances are all pretty tight in this movie. Like there's nothing, no one's doing a poor job, like maybe the lady that they go to her house and she's like, he was over by that tree and I saw he was 9 feet tall. Like maybe that lady, like I'm like, okay, but even
he was as much moth as he was man.
Yeah. And
Gordon's wife, who's like she's from other stuff, but she has like 6 lines in this movie.
Yeah, but I mean, she doesn't have a lot to do. Yeah. She's there to show Gordon's fall.
He steals that movie. Will Patton, he steals the whole movie, man. He's really good in this.
He's good as a crazy guy, that's for sure. Because he's the kind of actor that you can put into. He's a character actor that you can put into almost any role, and it works because he's like Play-Doh kind of. You're like,
has he ever been not crazy or not an asshole? Like, has he ever just been like, is there any kind of like Tom Hanks role for him or no?
In Gone in 60 Seconds, he's sort of like he's sort of like the wizened elder statesman in the movie, where he's there to like he's there to like spout exposition and impart knowledge to the characters, and also be like, I don't know about this. We gotta steal all these cars in 60 seconds. Are you serious?
In my mind, every time, like, his role in a movie is to say something that should be terrifying in a way that shows that he's not scared of what he's saying. You know what I mean? It'd be like, yeah, we're all gonna die for sure. Yeah. It's fine, and he's just fishing or something. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's kind of his shtick, unfazed by horrible things.
There's absolutely no way you can alive.
He's in Armageddon, I think, isn't he?
He's also in The Fourth Kind. Am I getting Mothman?
Wait, he was?
Yeah, he's the sheriff. He's the fucking sheriff in The Fourth Kind.
No way.
Yeah, dude.
That
was like that one actor that was in Deep Impact.
Maybe he's the same
year.
Character. So like after the events of Mothman, or sorry, before the events of Mothman, he sees the Fourth Kind happen, and
the
then
fucking aliens, and the Mothman is just an alien.
He moves
come
to
back
Virginia,
to haunt him.
He becomes a sheriff. He's like,
because the Fourth Kind.
Just as long as I can retire in this nice little village and not get visited by aliens again every day. Ah, shit.
Yeah, god damn it.
Because that's like nothing supernatural.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't get away from doing alien movies with us either, I guess, Alex. Because is the fucking Mothman an alien? Also, kind of felt like that a little bit.
Yeah, that's 100%. Yes. Like,
well,
that's part of you how you perceived it?
I would perceive it as it's kind of maybe not tied to Earth.
Yeah, not an alien in the sense that it's an alien.
I don't think it
space.
visited Earth from somewhere else, but I think that if you were on another planet, or there could be like Glarboxes on planet Zerflox, and they're seeing Mothmen too. You know what I mean? Like, I think that it's kind of, in my mind, it seems like a cosmic force.
Because I'm hung up on the cryptids as being like missing link style entities, like the chupacabra, some sort of missing link dog creature. You know, Bigfoot is like a missing link.
Well, that's a you problem,
hybrid.
sir. Look at cryptid.
I know what. No, I know. I get that. I get that. You perceive it as more like the bigger picture of anything that's not human.
It's the unknown.
Yes,
that's basically what a cryptid is. Anything that has a legend attached to it.
I'm too fascinated by the C138, I think it's called, the classification of
yeah, I'm
the
sure that
database.
both the Mothman and Ingrid Cold probably exist in that database in some capacity.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ingrid Cold is more closely associated with interdimensional beings or you know, multi-dimensional beings that can exist outside of time and cross over into, you know, what you would consider to be alien, but not necessarily gray aliens that we're familiar with that are here visiting from another planet.
Yeah, not extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Which is kind of like what this movie is saying the Mothman is, because, you know, there's a ton of different Mothman stories that you can look into and different interpretations of the Mothman, but a lot of them are just like, I saw a Mothman flying through the air. Like, it's not real, like, you know, tales.
Uncle
like
Cletus saw a bat. And
then it turns out it was like, oh, there was just a large migratory bird flock that came through of herons, and they were really bigger than usual. And when you flash them with a flashlight, they have like glowing eyes.
Hey, people see stuff, man. What? I don't believe in a lot of stuff, but I believe that people believe stuff because I saw something when I was a kid.
I don't disbelieve things either, but I do think that, like, when somebody sees something and then they report it to the news, and then a week later, after the newspaper comes out, 40 more people say they saw it. That's when I'm like, no, they thought they saw something because they were looking for something.
So up north, the indigenous people believed in a thing called the Wendigo. Apparently the Wendigo comes and will take you or murder you. You know, I was almost drowned at Lake of the Woods one summer recently, about 8 years ago. And Madison's grandmother, we're sitting around the table later. Madison's grandmother was like, the Wendigo tried to get you. Like fully seriously, like the Wendigo tried to get you. And I was like, I know the Wendigo is like a monster from Final Fantasy, like kind of thing. Final Fantasy mentioned, but people believe these things to be true. I also found the Mothman entry for the SCP Foundation, which is that database I was talking about. SCP-2901 is the Mothman, and it's got a whole write-up. And people believe, you know, some people treat this like a fun fantasy thing, but some people treat this like we have to go hunt SCP-2901.
Well, SCP, that whole website is like
Mothbusters.
It's a creative writing exercise that has gotten out of control. But like,
can I share my experience as a child?
Sure.
Yes, please.
So when I was a kid, I was probably 5 or 6. Here's why I believe people, but I don't believe what they're saying. I was trying to fall asleep. I was 5 or 6. I was in my bed, and I heard a noise, and I looked in the corner of my room, and E.T. was there. And then E.T. scurried behind my closet, and I got out of bed, and I looked behind my closet, and E.T. was gone. And then now, of course, I realized that I was probably half asleep and dreamed that I saw E.T. and then actually kind of woke up and went and looked for E.T. But that memory is as vivid to me as any real memory that I have. It's like, it's indistinguishable from real life. If that had been something else and not E.T., something that I can tangibly say, okay, like Spielberg's E.T. does not exist, I would have 100% believe in whatever I saw. Like if I had seen a ghost or like an alien or something, I would believe for sure that I had an encounter.
I had an alien thing too when I was a kid. I was terrified that aliens were going to abduct me, and I was terrified that aliens were watching me all the time. And it went on until I was probably 12. I still had these like, don't leave the window open at night. And it really manifested in the ability to be able to see out the window as I was falling asleep, I think was my issue with it, being able to see like the stars. And I was mortified for years. And now I'm not really afraid of the dark, but I find that if you stare into the darkness, into the void for too long, you start to, your brain just starts to make up stuff. But I did get sleep paralysis one night when I was a teenager. And all that is like you fall asleep weird. So your spine falls asleep a little bit. So you can't move.
Listen, I was diagnosed with recurrent sleep paralysis. If you want a breakdown, I can really fucking get into it. I had it for years and years and years and years and years. It's basically like your brain. You can get sleep paralysis if you have like recurrent sleep paralysis, which just means usually sleep paralysis lasts like 30 seconds for most people. But recurrent means it can last up to an hour, and you can have it like every single night. But basically, the chemical responsible for causing your body to be immobilized when you're dreaming, it activates before you've actually fallen asleep, and then you start to hallucinate, either auditory hallucinations or visual hallucinations, because you're literally dreaming while you're still awake. So you're seeing things that aren't there, and you're hearing things that aren't there. But yeah, like I didn't know that I had it until I was in my like early 20s, because I would have them all the time through childhood. I have like Alex, I have this very specific memory of me lying in bed and looking at the crack in the door of my room was open into the hallway with the light on, and like these two faces coming in and just like watching me sleep. But they were like elderly. They looked like the Leprechaun, you know, like the Leprechaun cover of like the movie Leprechaun. It looked like that. And they would just sit there and watch me. And I'd be trying to like, try to get somebody's attention to come wake me up.
You know what's actually crazy about that? So I was going to bring that up with the sleep paralysis thing. There's a Japanese yokai, which is basically their version of cryptid, called Kanashibari, and that's like the snow woman or the sitting woman, and that's the thing that comes and like sits on you in the night and holds you in place and kills you.
The three most common sleep paralysis, like they call them sleep paralysis demons, like that's what a lot of people, there was like a time on the internet where people would
it was a
say
big
that
thing
all the time, is the hooded figure, which is like basically like a Grim Reaper death visual, a hag, which is
too much,
a hag, which is what Jason is describing, and basically an elderly woman that will come in and just like stare at you or sit on your chest, and then insects, large insects or small insects or whatever, just like crawling all over you. But when you're hallucinating, you can feel it, and when someone's sitting on your chest, you can feel it, and you struggle to breathe, and it does feel like there's somebody there. It's crazy, and 100% do not recommend. Don't recommend.
The first one is the one that you get if you take too much like cough medicine or too many sleeping pills, and you wake up and you see the hooded figure. Well, like the sleep paralysis demon, the TikToks of my sleep paralysis demon fucking doing a funny dance at the end of the bed. I like that. That's a funny meme.
But I have like a million paralysis tales. I could probably make a podcast that's just me talking about an episode for years.
Steve's paralysis tales. Hey, did you see these paralysis tales?
Yeah.
But I mean,
that's my sleep paralysis demon, listening to you talk about yours while I
sit at the end of the bed on your feet.
Okay. And then there was this guy, and he had 10 arms.
Yeah. All right, Alex. So me and ET are going to tell you this story.
Anyway.
Sorry. Yeah, let's move on from that.
Sorry, we were having a lot of fun there. Let's get back to talking about Mothman Prophecies.
The Mothman Prophecies.
I knew this is going to happen all month long, where our guests are going to get to tell us about their encounters with fucking yokai,
with monsters. So the first time I saw Bigfoot. I don't really have like a. I was trying
a lot smaller than I thought.
I've got a Bigfoot one, but I'll save it for next week.
I was trying to think of an example of something Mothman-esque that's happened to me, but I couldn't think of anything outside of sleep paralysis stories, because I have a very clear understanding understanding of when it's happening to me now. I still get it from time to time, but not as much as I did when I was in my 20s. But like I can feel it happening where I'm like, oh shit, like it's happening. All right, prepare yourself mentally to see something
It's like
weird.
your version of smelling burning toast before.
Exactly. Yeah, you're having.
I was going to ask you, both of you, I guess. Well, Steve's is an actual medical affliction. Seeing E.T. though,
Yeah.
in my fear of aliens, did you happen to watch the television program In Search of with Leonard Nimoy as a kid?
No, I never.
Because I
did.
think I was left unsupervised with too many of those, like, out in the woods, there's monsters and beings that we don't understand. And Robert Stack and in Unsolved Mysteries, you know, like
I was going to bring
My
that up.
dad would
later.
listen to Coast to Coast.
Oh God, yeah. Welcome to Coast. Today we're talking about angels. Oh, fuck.
yeah.
I don't care about.
They're not good.
Yeah, angels actually are evil.
Yeah.
They can make you obsessed with weird things like dinner plates and chairs. You're like, what the fuck?
Was that
We
on the
have
CBC?
resident angel expert Samantha Bliss on the show tonight. Hello, Samantha. Hi, Tom.
No, keep going.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna do a whole
radio
radio
show.
show. Yeah.
Yeah.
The first time I saw an angel, I was smoking a
John's-
whole lot of heroin with my boyfriend.
Yeah. And then I drew a bunch of pictures of it. It looked like a moth.
It looked like a Mothman.
There was some weird guy staring at me. I couldn't tell if he was a doctor or a patient or what.
So John
He
had
looked like E.T. It was very strange.
Yeah.
he was sitting on my chest. It was
He was wearing a kimono for some reason.
I think Steven Spielberg was there.
yeah.
Taking notes in the corner. Steven Spielberg.
That's how he got all his ideas. That's Close Encounters is based on his actual.
Speaking of unsolved mysteries, though, whenever they do a flashback in this movie, it feels like an unsolved mysteries episode.
Yeah.
Where it's like, like the year was 1969, and Agatha Christie was walking home from her job at the local diner, and it's like the way it's filmed, it looks like
reenactment element of this movie.
It has a
is very
reenactment
prominent
vibe to it. Yeah.
Okay, so John now is heading to his interview in Richmond, Virginia. He becomes inexplicably lost and ends up in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Interesting fact about Fallout 76, it takes place in West Virginia, and it also has a Mothman, but that's explained because somebody got irradiated or whatever. I just wanted to bring Fallout 76 up because I think that the Mothman is like how Chupacabra is in like southern United States and Mexico, and like, Loch Ness is in Loch Ness, etc. This Mothman, I think, is localized to West Virginia, right? I think it's the
Mothman is like a global thing, though. Yeah,
but it's not like from a place, like a local.
Oh, I think it originated here. Yeah, that's where
okay.
Like, the first sightings of the Mothman were. But it is a global thing. But it's like the stories of the Mothman spread, and then people started seeing the Mothman. It's not like they.
And then there's like localized versions, because we have like Champlain has Champy, and then there's also Bigfoot all over the world. There's like the Yeti, and there's so there's probably a Mothman variant elsewhere.
Moth feller.
Yeah, Moth guy. Math man.
Mothman's in Scarborough.
Yeah. Mothman. Leave your Mothmans in the hood. Yo, I'm sick to my stomach, fam.
Yo, come get your Mothmans.
No, I gotta lick a chapstick.
But he does become inexplicably lost and ends up in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, hundreds of miles off course. It's 2:30 o'clock in the morning, and he knocks on the door of Gordon Smallwood, played by Will Patton. And Gordon, visibly shaking, claims that John has been visiting his house for several nights, even though John just arrived. The police, led by Connie Mills, played by Laura Linney, arrive and verify John's story. So the time dilation element sort of comes into play as we kind of round out the first section of the movie.
Yeah, and like I said before, it really it ramps the intrigue, right? Like it is nice to see that he still kind of believes his wife. Like before she dies, he's revisiting the crash site to be like, what could she have seen that freaked her out so much? And he's trying to figure it out. It's almost like the fact that she has a frontal lobe brain tumor isn't enough. You know, I don't think that a tumor would cause that kind of crazy shit.
Yeah.
What's it called? Glioblastoma. He's like, no, the glioblastoma, I don't know. I still believe that she saw a Mothman. I have to go figure it out.
Yeah.
But
didn't
even
see it. It's like, no, I don't have a brain tumor that's so bad that I'm days away from dying from it.
Yeah. And I mean, even in that moment, he's seeing things in that area that could have explained what it was that triggered some sort of hallucination, right? Which is one thing that I actually kind of liked visually in this movie. Is that every place where there is something, an encounter of a Mothman of some sort, there is an explanation to it within the vicinity as to what they saw or how they saw it, right? Like there's always some sort of like, I saw glowing red eyes. And
it keeps you on the hook in the sense that it's like you can never commit to believing it or dismissing it.
Yeah, and that's what's so successful about the intrigue of this movie is that they are presenting you with enough counter evidence to it being supernatural that you aren't really sure up until a certain point whether everybody is actually crazy until he starts getting phone calls that other people are hearing and like that kind of stuff where you're like, okay, it's real, I guess. And it's like too much for it to be some kind of really elaborate hoax. It has to be something supernatural. And I think to Jason's point earlier, like that's when the movie starts to sort of waver for me, where I'm like, okay, confirmed Mothman. You know, we don't have that level of intrigue anymore after that point. And the movie sort of suffers for it because in a traditional narrative, it would be like, okay, now that we have Mothman confirmed, we got to have Mothman everywhere. We got to have Mothman in full Mothman form, chasing people down and going, Mothman.
I have a new theory.
Need it on a plastic lunchbox.
Exactly. Can I get a theory? Can I get a theory right quick?
This better be better than your last one.
Swamp gas.
Yeah. This time it's swamp gas.
Nurse in this town. Everybody has a elastopemia or whatever it's called.
Oh wow. Yeah, it's one in 600,000, and they all like. There's something about Point Pleasant that they're like, that sounds really nice, you know. And your brain's
in that little section at the end that was like, you know, and something like this never happened again, but everybody died of elastoglycemia.
For sure.
Sorry, Steve. I know you.
That's a good theory.
Don't care for the stupid jokes.
Jason's glioblastoma theory. Prophecies. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. That's the movie should be called glioblastoma prophecies.
Her surgery cost $600,000. Insane. So crazy. In America bucks.
Yeah.
But yeah, he goes back to the crash site and he's trying to see if she really saw something. And that's where we get like the safety cones or whatever with the red lights on it. And you're like, okay, those could be the eyes. But we get that over and over throughout the movie. Even at the very end of the movie, when the bridge is collapsing, there's two like red lights on the top of that he looks up at. And, you know, they kind of out of focus for a second. And you're like, oh man, those eyes are everywhere.
I loved all those.
Yeah, they're cool. They're good.
Visually, I liked it a lot.
It's like a good sort of sense of iconography that like it plays into, like I was saying, you know, solidifying the fact that the Mothman might not be real, and you can explain it away as many times as you want, but the rest of the movie is sucking you down towards like this thing exists everywhere at all times.
I also had a weird thing where I watched the Silent Hill movie recently, and I thought that before I like knew what was happening in this movie, I thought there might have been some sort of like he found a place untouched by time. I mean that or untouched by people for a long time, I guess. But obviously that's disproved immediately because
that also might be because you watched Silent Hill a week ago.
I was like, is this a Silent Hill thing? No, it's definitely not.
You got Silent Hill pilled.
But the time dilation and like time travel element, I don't know if it's just that he conks out, like it has like we're witnessing him have dark spots. He's got brain damage from the car crash, from the original car crash as well.
I think it's supposed to be that he's already been over the last 2 years that the Mothman has been with him, kind of thing, and it was just waiting for the opportunity to get him, or to it's like he says to his buddy or whatever. It's like you're traveling through time, happy, and the universe just points at you and says, I've been looking for you.
Yeah, a happy couple. I've been looking for you, or whatever.
Looking for you. And I get that feeling sometimes in my everyday life, and it just seems that like after the tragedy, that circumstance happens again, where as soon as he leaves town, we can't confirm or deny whether or not he's even been back to work for too long. Maybe this is just sort of like his first steps back from dealing with tragedy. Maybe he was working hard the whole time, but he's not taking a plane to where he needs to go because it's not that far. But then he ends up driving way far off course and not remembering the drive, right? So he drove for like a crazy amount of time in the wrong direction.
With Ohio, you know what I mean? That was a cool, like, it's just like, whoa, like that is a big hook for sure.
Definitely, especially having come just off of like, you've been here 3 nights in a row, but we know that can't be true as the audience because we witnessed what he's been up to since then, right?
Yeah.
And again, it's the beginning of this movie is so well done in terms of like you said, putting its hooks into you and being like, now you're in for the ride. Let's go. You're fully in an episode of the X-Files at this point, and you're gonna love it. And then
it's the epitome of like
Also, I did want to say one thing. His buddy, when he's trying to get him to date the other lady or whatever, he says, "Come on, she's not married, not by a mile."
No,
but you know what? No one ever will be.
She says she's not Mary.
Oh,
which is his wife's name.
Mary. Okay, now the line makes sense. I'm like, what the fuck
of course that's what he said.
Yeah,
he's not married.
Get over
not
your
by
wife.
a mile.
This woman's not even married. No, he's not Mary.
But the sentence as a whole, if you change it from Mary to married, makes no sense to me. And I was like, and I wrote down, what the fuck does this even mean? And then I looked it up, being like, is this a saying in fucking Ohio or something that I've never heard of before?
Yeah.
I think that
thanks for clearing that up for me. Yeah.
Yeah. No problem.
From my point of view too, I watched it in exactly 60 minutes, and then I finished it at 1 hour, right? Like he's talking to Connie about like what's happening, and then I came back to it, and then it like the rest of the movie I was struggling with, and it really is like the first half. It's an excellent setup with a really like poorly planned out payoff that meanders a lot. It doesn't really explain itself too well, except for the like we'll get to the guy when he meets
Johnny Exposition
Steen. He's Jewish, and what ends up happening is it's just a dump of a crazy person who also has brain damage. You know, it's kind of the vibe that you get from him. But the first half of the movie, we're right at about that point. Now we're about halfway through, and it's like I really wanted more after such a cool mystery at the start.
Does his car lose power, or does he run out of gas? You know,
I don't know, because he takes it to that mechanic, and the guy's like,
turns on.
Yeah.
Oh, I really like.
Little
I like
Mothman
that
face.
they really sell the small town feel.
Yeah.
With the mechanic not charging him. It's like there's nothing wrong with it. He's like, "What do I owe you? Nothing. There's nothing wrong or whatever."
Yeah,
but it's
why would I charge you for something I didn't do?
Yeah, he's like a big shot from DC. Like it's like I know this guy's gonna. I got to pay this guy and all that.
It feels like Guelph. I don't know if you guys have ever been to Guelph, but it has like the same sort of like
the whole town is one strip
with a church at the end of the street. Yeah. It kind of has that vibe. But yeah, it feels sort of like any town, Northern Ontario to me. So it felt sort of homely to me in the sense that I'm like familiar with these types of areas.
Oh, close to your cottage kind of feeling.
Yeah, like somewhere I've been before, but have never lived in for an extended period of time.
It was filmed outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so that's all like Midwest. Like it looks like.
Yeah, but what I mean to say is that if it feels like it could be anywhere.
Yeah.
Like anybody who watches this who lives in sort of like the northern Midwest United States, or in our
Ajax,
anywhere around outside of the GTA, like these places, it feels very.
I feel like everyone's been somewhere like that before.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to a place like that literally tomorrow for the weekend. My dad, his like trailers in a place called Grand Bend, and it's just like farmland, and then these little towns with like 30 buildings.
I've been to Grand Bend. My friend had a cottage. Mark, Mark's been on the show before. He used to have a cottage there when we were kids. I've been there a few times.
Yeah, I'm going up there to my dad's trailer. It's like a campsite with trailers, and I'm going to see the Mothman. I'm going to take mushrooms and try to find the Mothman this weekend. And
Oh,
then
God.
fall in the fucking lake.
Yeah, show's canceled next week because Jason found the
Die.
Mothman.
I found him.
Yeah, it falls in the lake, and then the only explanation is that the Wendigo got you.
Oh yeah, exactly. Or I come back and I'm just like scrawling fucking pictures of the Wendigo or the Mothman.
Yeah. And I'm like, look, everyone, Jason's been drawing angels. And it's
Yeah.
just horrifying bats.
And it's just black construction paper with chapstick drawings of angels of Mothman.
Biblically accurate fucking angels. Too.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, when you said Madison's grandma was like the Wendigo tried to get you, I pictured her like knitting, and then next to her is
nobody knew she was there until she said it.
Yeah, but then next to her is Madison quilting. Grandma, you're scaring Jason.
No, it was much more sinister than that. We were just having a conversation, and she just says it was the Wendigo. Just said it conversationally, which I think is more menacing.
It's a fact. Yeah.
Like
George would.
Yeah, it's a fucking Mothman.
Yeah,
gotcha.
I will also say that like after this moment where he's at the house and she comes in and she's like, "Who are you?" Blah blah blah, and like he's doing a really poor job of not seeming like he was actually just stalking their house because he's not giving her any information.
Yeah, he is really pushing his luck with the guy pointing a shotgun at him. That's clearly unstable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like he's like calls him crazy when he's like, has a gun in. You're crazy. I wasn't calling you crazy. Bud. I was calling the situation crazy.
The situation is crazy, not you, Sarah, with pointing a shotgun in my mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
Well,
I do like that they kind of become friends though. Like,
Yes, I do. Yeah, I thought they were
like kindred spirits.
Yeah. They're both like, we're both going through something very fucking weird, and we both recognize how weird it is.
We believe everything that each other is
like,
saying.
Right? Yeah. And they're able to be like, we're both not crazy. Something
mutual
crazy
friends
is
of the Mothman.
Yeah.
The sequel. Well, we learn at this point too that Connie has had sightings from the most normal people in town, who are of course the churchgoers. And they've already coined the term Mothman in this town, and he interviews locals who describe eerie experiences, including prophetic visions and a sense of impending doom. And we do get that funny scene where they're outside. The only like comedy in this movie is like they're outside that house, and the person's like, it's got to be like 8 feet tall, and it shows like the tree. It's not even funny. I found it visually funny to see like Richard Gere standing below this tree, and it's like it's 8 feet tall, and then the branches are clearly like 10 feet up, and I was like, how fucking tall is Richard Gere? I don't know. I thought it was a funny thing, and also what it could be explained away as is like you just saw a shadow in that space between like the branches and the trunk. Like a lot of this stuff can be explained away.
None of the first-hand accounts as we meet these people seem all that reliable. It's like, so this lady thought she saw something outside, and then the teenagers were like probably fucking drunk or whatever, like boning in a gravel pit, whatever the fuck.
And she tried to get him off him with pocket sand, and that's why his eyes won't heal. Remember his eye was like,
yeah, he's like, I can only finish if you throw gravel in my eyes.
No, but they do all have that same thing where they're like, I saw the glowing red eyes, which is how Mary died.
Yeah.
When she waxed her head on that glass, that was fucking chunky. That was chunky
fucking. It's so ungraphic and understated, but so obviously bad. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, that is a scary one because it's like, oh, that seems like something that could easily happen to you. You whack your head on the window like that.
Yeah, I mean, no idea how much damage it actually did, but it's the reason that they ended up finding the tumor, right? So
Yeah.
it's like the Mothman didn't put the tumor in her head, but the Mothman caused the incident that revealed it, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, to that point, is the Mothman providing Gere with some sort of preparation for the trauma in order to allow him to process it or have it be more traumatic to him, allowing him
kind
to
of
deal
like
with it for days before?
loosen the lid on her dying, or what?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he saw the Mothman because he goes back and he sees those lights on top of the things, and he's like, he writes it off as it just being those lights. And
Tumor vision. It was tumor vision.
Just tumor vision, and he finds it especially strange when he gets to Point Pleasant, and everybody's like, I saw these glowing red eyes. This movie is an interesting character study of a man. We watch a man slowly unravel, which I think is my biggest takeaway from this. Like, Richard Gere slowly going crazy in these small increments, I think is probably my favorite part of the movie. Outside of all the crazy shit happening around him, I think that he really played like everyday normal businessman to, like, at the end he's just like, well,
but he's very rational, and he is a reporter, so there's like, he has that kind of investigative bone where it's like he's probably used to like things not being how they appear, so it's like get to the bottom of it in a sense of in kind of like stages and be like, okay, what's really happening here?
Yeah.
And it's, he to a point has he finds obsessions, right? Like he becomes obsessed over a new thing when a new detail arises. It's like, okay, I'm gonna sort of like obsess over this until I figure it out at every angle and then move on to the next thing. And that happens throughout the movie a couple of times, right? Like when he gets the message, obviously he wants to speak to his dead wife again, but he becomes obsessed over that to the point that he can't do anything but listen to the message.
Which there is a real unravel moment in the third act that really shows that in it. It's one of my favorite parts of the later movie where he's just like full bore insane, and we get a really, well, we'll get to it. At this point in the movie, though, we're focused more on Gordon segment of the movie. Gordon begins to hear voices predicting disasters and sees the Mothman. He shares these experiences with John, who's, so this is what this says: skeptical but intrigued. I don't know if that's the correct way to explain that, ChatGPT. John investigates further and discovers the town's history of strange occurrences, and we meet Alexander Leake, played by Alan Bates, an expert on paranormal phenomena, who warns John about the Mothman and his link to disaster predictions. And there's some stuff within that. The boss is getting mad at Gere for just hanging out in this town seemingly indefinitely. Like,
we never really see the boss again. We just hear that the other guy is saying that the boss is mad.
Yeah,
I feel like the other guy needs Richard Gere as like his wingman or something.
Yeah,
like, this boss.
The boss is shitting himself.
The boss is like, let him have as much time as he needs.
Yeah.
You know,
his wife died. He's processing his trauma. Yeah. Let him deal with it. And he's like, I got double the work to do. Okay, Klein, I need you back in the office.
It's funny, Steve, that you brought up small towns, because I actually made a note. I don't think this is super accurate, but I made a note that says, if you ever wonder what Brampton looks like, this town kind of looks like Brampton.
No,
but more like like the suburban part uptown. Not really.
No.
I think I was thinking of Peterborough or Ajax or some
Guelph. It looks exactly like fucking Guelph.
I've seen a lot of meth men in Peterborough.
Yeah. Meth men. You see meth men in downtown Brampton all the time. 99 will die. The redneck hears a voice about it. I kept calling him the redneck because I thought he was going to be a nothing character, but then he ends up being like, the whole story kind of hinges around him dying. Spoilers. Here's a voice about it. His ears bleeding. We get more POV scenes of Mathman. I kept changing up like how I spelt it just for my own fun.
So
Oh, okay. So go back to my brief history. Sorry, Steve. The thing I do remember about this movie and the trailers from 2002, and the big thing besides the owl that's not in it because that's a different movie, is the set piece of the bridge, which they show in this movie 4,000 times.
yeah, it's because it crashes to death at the end, so they need you to know that it exists.
You need to know about the bridge. Yeah.
It's
like when they keep showing the Death Star throughout Star Wars.
yeah,
Okay.
it's gonna blow up. Yeah.
Like that kind of foreshadowing is like a relatively new like thing for me because like I'm more of a TV person. That stuff's telegraphed a little bit differently than in movies where it's like they Chekhov's gun a lot in film. They don't really Chekhov's gun in TV as hard.
Yeah.
And
this movie isn't really like, it's not a smart movie. Like it's not a bad movie, but it's not like changing the rules of how you present information. It's doing sort of like paint by numbers in terms of like how we reveal a mystery and how we achieve foreshadowing. But like, it also does things where I'm like, fuck off. Like at the end of the movie when she's like 36, wake up number 37, and then it like pans out and I'm like, got it, thank you, movie.
Yeah. But I'm still like new at it, and like I watched Lethal Weapon 2 on Tuesday, and at the beginning of the movie he does this like parlor trick. Riggs does this parlor trick where he can pop his shoulder out, and it saves his life at the beginning of the third act because he gets dumped in the water and he's bound. He fucking puts his shoulder out to like get out of the ocean. He's dumped in the ocean. I still don't have that in my brain yet, that intelligence to like pick those out in like early in the movie. And
never gained that.
Never
honestly, never learned that.
Yeah.
But with TV, I know the opposite with television where it's like, okay, I see what's happening.
Yeah, I've killed that part of myself, and it's made me enjoy movies and TV shows so much more now. I used to like watch trailers for movies and like peer over every detail and try to like learn as much as I can, or like go to episode discussions after every episode of a show that I like. And then it's like, no, sometimes it's better to just be like, what? You know what I mean? Like, whoa, he popped his shoulder.
But it's also, in terms of like story structure, I think it was Jason, was it you when we went to go see the new Avatar movie and like I leaned over to you when they introduced
that guy's fucking dead.
This character is gonna die. I know it. I was like, this guy or this guy, one of them's dead. And Jason started laughing because I was just talking shit. And then at the end of the movie, like, the guy fucking dies.
When it happened, I looked over and I was like, you son of a bitch.
How did you know? And I'm like, because the movie is like,
because of the way that it's
doing the things, all the things are being
said. Yeah. See, in television, I'm able to pick out that stuff. And to what you said, Alex, like, I don't like to read too much while the show's on. I like when a show finishes, I like to go and read all about it,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Read all about it. So when you look at the Mothman, your eyes bleed. When you listen to the Mothman from your toilet drain, your ears bleed.
Your ears bleed. He accidentally predicts 99 people would die. And then we see the news. Plane crash, 99 deaths. 99 people on it, no survivors. Connie's dream sequence has the number 37. And then I wrote a note to myself that said, so like, is it aliens or a cryptid? And then I guess it can be discussed that aliens as we know them are also cryptids, which Steve's making a face right now. He's not, but he feels like he should be. I know, for the first time ever. For the first, I thought I was going to look back and you were like,
I do think that this is like a good reveal, but then they do it again, I think too close to this point.
Yeah.
Because I had forgotten what the tragedy was. And I was like, is he referring to the bridge at the end? Because it's the only one that I could remember. And then when it's revealed that it's the television reveals that it's a plane crash, I was like, oh, okay. So this guy's getting this information for other tragedies that aren't necessarily taking place in this town. That's kind of interesting. But then they do the earthquake within like 10 minutes, you get another one. And I'm like, okay, we get it. You don't need to give us this many right away. Like save a couple. You got like an hour and a half left in this movie. So to me, and then they don't do another one until the end. So it's like, oh, okay, they blew their Mothman prophecies in the middle of the Mothman. I didn't get any
Blew their
more
moth
prophecies.
Oh, they're Indrid cold.
But I also was like, because there's a moment where he's moving through the diner towards the TV, and he goes to turn it up, but they pan across this wall that's showing this sort of like this like painting of like indigenous people hunting buffalo in like the time before colonization or something or whatever. So I'm sitting here being like, oh, is the Mothman like a tale from like ancient indigenous cultures? And I looked it up and I'm like, oh no, it's not. It's just a bunch of weird white people
ancient.
like, I saw a Mothman.
I saw a Mothman.
Well,
I was at the
looked that-
Kmart.
I looked that up, and it's according to the SCP entry.
The
it's
SCP is
Euclid.
not real. It's not
No,
a
I
real
know.
source of information.
It's the object class is Euclid, which is a Greek mathematician. So it might be based off a Greek sort of.
If you spread the
myth.
hypotenuse of the Mothman,
Don't you ever say that word hypotenuse to me ever again?
you get the area of both of his wings.
Yeah.
I wrote down 99 will die. Oh my god.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you know what? The stakes are never that high in this movie, are they?
No, not really. 99. It could have been 100. Could have been 100 dead,
Well, 100 is kind of, you would think that maybe if they said 100 people died in a plane crash, they're like rounding it out.
Yeah, they're like, that's too round of a number. I didn't look into whether or not these other tragedies were real and if they were like actually, like, I know they're part of the book, but I think that might have been the creative licensing for the book itself. Because a lot of like the true story stuff of this is loosely based off of the bridge tragedy, which actually happened, and then like other things surrounding it.
Which is like the fourth kind was a fake version of real events. Fuck, man, why are these movies so connected?
Talk about that movie ever again. It's so
okay.
bad.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry,
the worst
Steve.
movie I've ever seen.
I'm just doing my own research and finding parallels. Okay.
You're doing your research on a creative writing website.
Listen, it's so stupid too. This stupid entry is like, do not attempt to run. Fling may provoke the thing to give chase. Hold your ground. Be sure to make eye contact. Listen, this movie,
which is totally not how it worked in Fallout 76.
Exactly. Also, that
my other source for information about the Mothman.
You're supposed to not look the Mothman in the eyes. It'll burn your retinas.
Yeah.
And make you see prophecies.
Do you not wear
300 die of the equator?
Do not wear revealing clothes. The Mothman is a pervert.
yeah. He will come into your closet and crash your fun time.
We are introduced to Indrid Cold at this point. If he gets a call, John gets a call, starts getting cryptic calls from this voice, who provides accurate predictions about upcoming tragedies. That's what a funny way to fucking phrase that.
Yeah.
Coming this
Coming
summer.
soon. Yeah.
300 die at the equator. and meanwhile, John's own experiences start becoming increasingly disturbing. And this is where Connie has her stupid fucking wake up number 37 dream. John becomes convinced the Mothman is connected to an impending disaster. Are you fucking dumb, John? Like, yes, of course. So yes, like I mentioned several times now, he does get the call from Indrid that's like 300 will die at the equator. Ecuador has an earthquake. I made a note that around now would be the Home Alone, but that's not my Home Alone at all. The call with Indrid Cold is spooky. He knows what's happening exactly. This is the scene where we get the famous chapstick line.
Is this the breakdown from ChatGPT or is this your own notes?
No, that I've transitioned into my own.
Okay. Because you're skipping over a lot of stuff I'd like to talk about.
I so what I've been doing is I read the swath and then I go back to my notes and read.
Okay.
Because I'm able to. I've figured out how to.
I want to talk about, is he dating the nurse now all of a sudden, or not the nurse, the cop? Because like they're just in her house and he's wiping her tears off her face and shit.
Well, they jump around time so much that it almost feels like they started having an emotional affair, at least much earlier in the movie. Immediately, like he gets there immediately and like hugs her really early into them knowing each other in that way.
It's like they've done it, right? They've probably already done it at that point. But I mean,
Thank you for not showing it.
I'm glad they don't really go dig into it because I don't care. I'm like, if they had
Yeah.
to also integrate a romance into this, I really wouldn't give a shit about it. But I mean, I also don't really give a shit about a lot of the other stuff that's happening, so maybe it would have been good. I don't know.
I don't know.
But this is where you get her dream where she's drowning in presents. And I'm like, okay, she's also going to die on Christmas Eve. Duh. But then you get the line like number 37. And we've already been given information that like
with numbers.
Ingrid is giving you numbers and stuff. It's like
Mothman's very number based, eh?
Yeah, he's got autism. The Mothman is autistic.
Oh, so the Greek mathematician thing isn't so ridiculous now, is it? Hypotenuse.
I didn't say it was, Jason. You extrapolated from a look what I was thinking.
A look that I made up before I looked back at the screen.
Yeah.
You just saw a look that he's going to do later.
Oh yeah, I had a Mothman prophecy about you giving me a dirty look.
Yeah. Or maybe it was from a previous or future episode.
Yeah, it happens so much. This fucking guy. I get this fucking guy look from Steve like so much. I want to hey, people watching this in the future or the past, please make a supercut of Steve being like, what the fuck is this guy talking about supercut?
All right. So chapstick.
Insert that there.
Yeah, this is where the chapstick comes into play. I like that. I like how dumb Ingrid Cold's voice sounds like. Like it's just so silly. Like I do a
robot voice.
I do a lot of audio work, and I have to manipulate voices often. And I know exactly how they did this voice. And it's funny that he takes it to an audio technician who's like, "This is not coming from human vocal cords." And I'm like,
and then you got this guy.
Exactly.
They also run that on John's voice at one point too, where they're like, it's him. We checked we sent it to a guy.
This audio character is definitely the worst part of the movie for me.
Yeah.
This is like, okay, I feel like it's like 60% of the way through the movie. They're like, hey, what if the people watching this movie are fucking stupid? Yeah. And it's like, they just need like, it's for like someone's grandma watching. I don't know what's happening. It's like, okay, well, let's get a scientist in here to say, this is definitely not a human. And then later have them be like, this is definitely you. You know what I mean? Instead of just trusting the audience.
I think this movie, after the 50-minute mark is when studio notes started flying like crazy, being like, we got to have a scene with this. We got to have a scene like that. Because it's like you're saying, it's like when the movie begins to decide that you're too stupid to figure out what's going on. But then it doesn't give you enough information for the things that are actually confusing, right? Like, I understand that, but can you elaborate on this, please?
It goes from show, don't tell to tell them everything. God damn it. Show them a bunch of POV shots of the Mothman fluttering around in slow motion.
The Mothman is like Predator if Predator never became visible. He's like stalking, invisible. You see his point of view. The color's a bit weird.
Yeah.
He's playing other people's voices back.
To them on their phone.
Is the Predator a Mothman?
Yeah, only the Predator loves.
He's an alien, like Jason said.
Yeah, he loves to skin people alive.
Yeah. I wish there was a skinning people
Six
alive
will die in this
sequence
jungle.
in this.
Six will die in the jungle. One guy gets skinned by like a big metal cord at the end, like TJ or whatever.
That was kind of cool. I liked that. That bit.
I was kind of hoping that they would just like up the rating and have that bridge be just horrifying, you know, like Ghost Ship or something. Or like,
Ghost Ship.
Yeah, like Death Proof. Just make it nuts. So yeah, Ingrid's weird voice. So as I said earlier, Ingrid Cold is also a weird cryptid in its own sort of separate folder of cryptid notes. Equally as strange, very weird, also known as, I think it was the Grinning Man or the Smiling Man or something like that. But we never actually see Ingrid Cold in this movie. We just see sort of a void or like a black fuzzy shape as Gordon explains it. But we also learn that Gordon has a wild ass schedule. Gordon's schedule is nuts. When we're getting the Ingrid Cold call, We get the chapstick product placement, which is wonderful because we're all familiar with chapstick, living in a climate that is sub-zero, 60% of the year. We know our chapstick here, but she rushes to his house while he's keeping Cold on the line. I feel like they could have made Cold's voice way better. Am I the only one that finds it goofy? Do you guys find the voice? I don't find it creepy. I find it goofy.
It just sounded like a classic robot. Like
I think it sounds
voice.
creepy, but because I'm locked into my 2002
right
impression of it.
Okay, it's basically it's like a regular tone voice with the same voice being played a second time, a fraction of a second pushed forward at a higher pitch, and then like a super low pitch version that like just repeats everything slightly afterward. So it's just like 3 layers on top of each other, and it doesn't sound alien enough for it to sound like ethereal or otherworldly or some sort of like interdimensional creature to me. It just sounds like a very easy voice to reproduce, which it drives me nuts because it's like the things you can do with audio design are wild, right? Where like they could have made this horrifying sounding. They could have got 3 different actors to record the dialogue and had these voices sort of like melding in and out of each other, get them to perform it at the same time, and then do further manipulation. So to me, it just sounds silly, but I could see how like maybe if I had like a childhood memory of being frightened of it, it would stick with me still. But anyway, that's besides the point. We learn that Gordon, she gets to his house at what, like 10 p.m. and he's like, I've been asleep since 9 p.m. But then like previously he's like, I was getting home from work around midnight. I'm like, what the fuck? What is this guy? And then when we first meet him, it's like 3 a.m. and he's like, I was sitting up waiting for him to come back at 3 a.m. I'm like, this guy does not sleep. He falls asleep at 9 p.m.
2:30 in the a.m.
Exactly. Do you know what's funny about Indrid Cold?
What's funny about him?
This is what he looks like.
That's an artist's rendition. That's not what he actually looks like.
Well, I'm not the SCP. There's no SCP entry for him, but there is a cryptid wiki entry for him, and there's lots of information about him. He was first seen in 1966 in West Virginia, and he's oftentimes connected to the Mothman, but he is commonly associated with UFO activity and believed to be an alien and could be connected with the Men in Black. So Steve is like, I'm out.
Yeah.
No, everything you're saying is what I also had read about.
I had never heard of this character. I thought it was an interesting like prophecy sort of storytelling element. I didn't realize we did get a 2-for-1 until you mentioned it earlier. So that's why I did some digging.
I never knew they were separate. I always just assumed it was some kind of alias for the Mothman.
Well, this solidifies my theory that the Mothman is a extraterrestrial being from the stars, versus I always just assumed Mothman was a demon, like more of a demon-y kind of a creature.
Yeah.
Or like a literal
Mothman. Because there's a lot of like people think that Bigfoot is from another dimension. You hear that oftentimes.
Which
and
is
the reason
to me, I'm like, why does it seem more
he comes
realistic?
through like a portal in a cave?
No, or he's like, he has a crazy like Doc Brown, like a bunch of
yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah.
And
people wander into a cave once in a while and end up in Bigfoot's dimension, and then it's like Steve's walking through the woods and they're talking about Shirt Man or whatever.
He wears clothes. It's fine.
Yeah, he's a bald Bigfoot and he wears a hat.
Oh man, I was gonna say, Jason, every time you do the Back to the Future chime, you do the Green Ranger theme from Power Rangers every single time.
I can't
like Tommy, dude.
Rest in peace, Green Ranger. I can't find it in my brain every time.
It's
when I try
very
to do
similar.
it.
It's the Green Ranger just is missing a lot of notes.
Oh no, I got it. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
This is actually going to make me mad if we don't stop. So, move on.
Da-na-na-na. Mothman.
You're gonna
The
kill him.
grinning man came out of the vehicle with a dark tan and walked up to the Derenberg and telepathically said, "My name is Idris Cold, and I mean you no harm." Cold said he just wanted to know more about the human race, and he would visit Derenberger again. After the encounter, Derenberger started to go crazy and ran away from the scene. He also made a thing called Planet Lanos in the galaxy of Genomedes.
I got it now.
There you go.
Dun, 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 dun. That's closer. I had
Close.
to listen to it to actually like.
It was
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. It's like back in time.
Okay, so
What if Marty McFly took a bad turn in the DeLorean and smashed his head against the wind?
Yeah, and the doc took him to the hospital, and he's
Yeah.
like, "You have gyroblastosis, Marty.
Marty, we have to go back in time, Marty, to stop your gyroblastosis.
You've got an enormous tumor on the frontal lobe of your brain."
We need the almanac to save your life.
Where we're going, we don't need closets.
We don't have $500,000 for the surgery, Marty.
We did a Michael J. Fox movie on Monday.
Yeah.
But
But he only has this element of the Michael J. Fox because he's like early Parkinson's. He doesn't have the voice. You know,
Jesus Christ.
he's got a little tick that he's had since
Yeah.
the 80s that I think is part of his Parkinson's.
Is that what you think?
Oh my god, what a fucking all-timer episode. Oh, can I get a name drop? Can I get a name drop, please? I got a close enough name drop.
Sorry, that. Oh yeah.
That's when they said the name of the movie in the movie.
They say prophecies or prophetic a few times, but when they're talking to Alexander Leak, I don't prophetic.
No, I
Prophetic.
was laughing because earlier you said prosthetic instead of prophetic, and I was like the Mothman
Prostheses.
prosthetics.
Prosthetics.
Yeah. And I was just thinking about like phantom limb syndrome, and I was trying to formulate some sort of.
He has a
joke
wooden
like,
wing.
I think my favorite thing that's happened in the recent few episodes, Steve, is when I say a thing and I think you're trying to rib me, but really you're just working through jokes in your head and don't come up with a joke, but you're just laughing at the things you're thinking. It's
the
very
concept
funny.
of a joke is
to
there,
me.
but I'm like,
Yeah.
where's the joke? Where is it? Can I find it before the time runs out? Because there's a timer before it expires. And
Yeah, it's about
sometimes
4
you-
seconds.
Sometimes
yeah.
you don't find it. Yeah.
At 1 hour, 2 minutes, 40 seconds, he finally says Mothman. I think that for a movie about the Mothman, the fact that it's finally like said out loud by Alexander Leak, I thought that was worth noting in that context.
That guy's crazy as a shithouse rat. That's my note.
I do like a professorial figure in these types of movies, but I don't feel like it was very good in this movie. And I think, Alex, you're right. It just felt like the studio shoving a character in to be like, we need to explain this to some boomer who's like, what? Did he? So is it an alien or a Mothman?
Where's Mary? I haven't seen Mary in a couple minutes.
Yeah. They never resolved
Grandpa-
her brain tumor.
I saw a
It
moth
is
once.
65% over. Mary died in the first 20 minutes. How's that?
That's all of our impression of the fire chief.
Yeah.
In this
Why
movie.
did that guy say that she's not married?
Yeah. Listen, that's what it sounded like to me. Okay?
You're such like you're an audio file. Like you listen to shit on headphones. Like you're painted. You're dialed in on that sound.
But
and
you're
the
just
music and
stupid.
okay. Listen,
Oh, no.
I'm gonna go to bat for my co-host here and agree with you. Sorry, Steve. I know you didn't like that. Start sound. Yep, there it is. There it is. I was waiting for it.
I think
But
only
this
I
dude,
can get away with that.
yeah, I apologize. I actually do. He does fully believe in the Mothman. He says they don't exist in our reality. Chalks them up he chalks him up to be like a buildup of energy before disaster strikes. This, spoilers, is kind of my home little, but I'll get into that when we get to it. Notice them, and you notice that you noticed them. Why did I write that? Is that just a weird
That's
thing
what he
to say?
says. He literally,
Oh.
he's like, you noticed them, and they noticed that you noticed them, and we noticed that he noticed that they noticed them.
Yeah, it's like in Mystery Men, where he's like, "I knew that you'd know that I knew, but I didn't. I only knew you'd know I know you knew. Did you know that?
Did you know? But that's why
it's like, it's because his wife died in a Mothman related scenario. That I think that's and that's kind of why they picked him. They're like, hey, you can save one person.
Yeah,
in the great mothening.
We're also like, spoilers for the next part of the discussion. We discover that he is also a mothite, as I call them, the people like have been exposed to the moth.
Yeah, moth heads.
Moth heads, yeah. The moth army. He's part of it, and he was obsessed at one point as well, but he had to give it up because I don't know why. It's not really made clear.
His wife was like, "Stop that."
Well, his wife left. He lost his wife. He lost.
Yeah,
he
went to an asylum.
He's not even married.
Yeah.
His wife's gone.
His wife, Mary, is not married.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's explained as in like, but there was no immediate danger. It was just he was driving himself insane, or to the very least, he was driving other people to think that he was insane, and it was affecting his life.
He was just driving other people insane because he won't stop talking about it.
He's the cautionary tale for Richard Gere to be like, "This is where I'm headed if I don't give this up."
Yeah, if you don't give it up, you could be a rich professor in a penthouse suite apartment surrounded by your favorite books too.
Yeah. Living in relative comfort.
Like, sign me up.
Totally safe.
I do have sort of like the part where he sees Gordon on the bridge, I think is around we're kind of going into the third act, like the home stretch bit. Indrid calls him again, but it's like a situation where he gets a call in the early morning that Gordon's out somewhere after he sees him out at night, finds him dead of exposure in the woods, and the Connie shows up, and she's like, "This dude's been in the woods for 8 hours. Like, he's been dead for a while. He died of exposure. When did he call?" He was like, "He called me 1 hour ago." And Connie's like, "I can't fathom what you're telling me right now." She always has that, like,
I'm tired of this shit. Tired of this
every
shit.
time he reveals a little thing, she's like, "This is ridiculous. Let's go fuck."
But also, this annoyed me because a reveal like this would be interesting in any other movie if you didn't already have interesting reveals before this point. Things that are meant to intrigue you. We already know that the Mothman can do this shit. So for it to happen at this point, it takes away from the depth of the character. It doesn't really reveal anything new to us and makes us think that Connie is fucking stupid. Like, it makes us be like, why isn't she believe him? Like, she's also seen all of this magical weird shit happening.
It's the X-Files, and Scully sees endless paranormal shit from 8 seasons and finally believes it once Agent Doggett comes in.
Scully has to. She is the one that has to write the report that makes sense for other people that read it. So she believes Mulder, but she has to not believe Mulder in the circumstances.
We only see the times that Mulder was right, too. I'm sure there was a million times where
where he was wrong. He's like,
they're just like in the middle of Oregon, and he's like, "There's a Wendigo here for sure." And
he's like, Mulder, Scully, I'm pretty sure it was the Squirrel Man, and she's like, Mulder, there's no such thing as the Squirrel Man. No, I've been in these.
Tell that to the stack of bodies he left behind.
And it's just
Well, I was thinking of like they go into a 7-Eleven, and it's like the person at the 7-Eleven is like, there's a monster skulking around the back. He keeps eating people in the back, and they just haven't been wizened up to like meth or bath salts yet. Just literally a meth head, just fucking killing people, like robbing people. But he's just a deranged lunatic.
Right. But I thought you were gonna say they interview the 7-Eleven clerk, and as they're leaving the 7-Eleven, he turns to Scully and he's like, "Scully, I'm pretty sure that was an alien. We just
But also that happens.
person. Yeah.
Hey, the scariest episode of X-Files was just people.
Yeah.
Which
human
one?
Murderers. Yeah.
The one with the like the inbred people on the farm
Yeah.
or whatever.
Oh yeah, that is the
That's
That
the
is-
one that was
episode.
banned from television because
It was
And
the
then-
scariest episode,
it
and
was
there was
too
nothing
fucked.
paranormal. It was just
It's also like the first episode of when Doggett comes in too. It's like they were like, it's so banned, we got to do it again.
that's
Anyway,
freaky.
X-Files is fucking great. Does this have a thing where Mothman is there in scenes? Oh yeah, I wanted to ask you guys. I saw one cool scene where like when he's like looking around a house, we do just get a shot of like a Mothman drawn. But that made me wonder, if you go back and rewatch this movie, are there moments where there's Mothman-esque things in the background that are like the moth is pretty indicative of this, but are there moments where have you guys ever noticed literal like a more obvious Mothman sort of in a frame or in a picture?
There's a couple things like he's pissed off at one point and punches a door with a mirror on it, and then it kind of shows like moth wife. I think
Yeah.
there's like a frame
There's
where
also, like,
it shows
weird-
Mary and she's red or something.
There's also a moment where he's talking on a phone and everything that's being reflected in the mirror is moving slightly before he is, like just ever so slightly. So there's
I
this-
noticed that too. I know exactly
well,
what you
pretty
mean.
fucking obvious.
I didn't know if it was like on purpose or if it was okay.
No, like, and then he smacks the mirror, and then when he smacks the mirror, the reflection in the mirror is like a twisted Mothman.
like-
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But then there are other moments like that, but you know, like I can't think of any that are off the top of my head.
The movie is also comes from a time where it was not as easy to scrub to those parts. You had to
Yeah.
like time the pause on your VCR, right?
It's true, yeah. You had to,
You know what I
you had
mean?
to, you had to notice it or you missed it.
It
There,
was
there
like
is
trying
a-
to. It was like trying to pause to see the alien on the roof in Signs.
right,
This would have
yeah.
come out on DVD though. It's 2002 at this point, so
Oh well,
maybe it wasn't.
maybe
baked
my
in.
family just didn't have as much money as yours.
Well,
Jason, stop poor shaming.
Yeah,
okay. Well,
So-
I was.
I
was
got a
poor-
DVD in 2018, and I was happy for it.
That's Blu-ray has existed in 2018.
You're still poor shaming, Jason.
Oh my
Just for
god!
anyone watching, this episode is pre-recorded because I still have dial-up, so we have to. We have to record it offline to it for episodes that I'm in, and then we just play
So
it.
there's
That
also a
doesn't even
moment.
make any sense.
Oh my god. There's also
Sorry,
a moment
Steve.
early on where when his car first breaks down, there's a lightning strike over his shoulder, but in the clouds you can tell that there is like a Mothman shape like within the
Okay.
clouds and stuff. So there are moments. I'm just trying to think. There's a bunch throughout, but those are the two that stand out the most in my head.
Has anybody considered it could be Batman?
Yes.
Yeah. He's there to fight the Mothman. And they keep, and all the citizens are like, there's a fucking Mothman running around. And Batman's
Yeah.
like, fuck, they thought I
The
was
Mothman crashes a plane, kills 99 people, then it causes an earthquake to kill 300 people, then it drowns
Yeah.
36 people, and then Batman's like puts him in jail where
Yeah.
he'll inevitably break out and kill hundreds more.
Well, he
But-
beats the ever
Yeah,
living.
if
piss
I
out of
kill the
him before
Mothman,
he's
then
in
I'm
jail.
no worse than the Mothman, as the Mothman's killing scores of people.
Yeah. He beat up a teenager. That teenager was too scared to talk to the cops because Batman beat him so badly that his eye wound never healed.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Listen, are we sure this isn't a Batman movie? Like,
I'm
but
not
from
sure.
the point of view of the civilians.
I guarantee you there is probably a Batman versus the Mothman comic somewhere that exists.
Well,
Yeah.
Man Bat is very Mothman.
No, he's
Like-
not. He's a
Little
man bat. He's nothing like a moth.
Imagine you saw Man Bat at night and you lived in West Virginia. You'd probably
Yeah.
think it was the
You'd
Mothman.
think it was the Mothman? Yeah, that's true. I would.
No, there's that scene where he goes back to the police station and Connie's like, this beautiful redhead just came through and asked about you, and she was weird enough. He just wanted to know if you were happy, and he pulls out his shit. He pulls out his wallet. He's like, "Was it this person?" She's
Was
like,
it this
"Oh,
picture of my wife?
Well, yeah, it's undeniable. The resemblance is uncanny. However, the hair is a little different." He's like, "That was my wife, right?" She's like,
She says no, and then he's like, "You're fucking lying," and she's like,
Yeah.
"No, I'm not. I swear." This is another one of those moments where you're like, the character is feigning ignorance in order to like save him from having a complete mental peel out in the middle of the road. But
I like that term.
Yeah.
A mental peel out.
Like, oh, actually, you know what? I'm not willing to take this all the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, it also again makes you feel like I'm now disliking this character a little bit more because she's doing it. Like, I think the intention there is for us to be like, oh, she's sparing him this horror, but like it's also making us be like, no, you guys are supposed to be in this together. It's creating a rift here, a distance between the two of you.
I did that the other day. A guy said something to me. I was just walking in the plaza where I work, and I was like, "What's that, sorry?" And he's like, "Paul McCartney used to live with me." And I was like, "Oh, that's awesome, man!" And I just kept going. Right? I didn't want to tell him that Paul McCartney didn't live with him. It would have put me in a real spot.
Scully, I think he's an alien.
That is where you and I differ, Alex. I would have been like, what do you mean? When? Yeah. I would have had so many follow-up questions.
He would have grabbed you by the face and stabbed you with a rusty knife, Steven. You know it.
Yeah, I get attacked by people a lot.
You're coming home with me to Paul McCartney.
Me and Paul are gonna sing you a song, boy.
Dun, dun, dun,
I can't remember the Back to the Future theme now. It's just fucking Green Ranger all the way down.
Oh man, they
Oh,
wrote
man.
lyrics to the Green fucking Ranger song.
I have a note here that says this movie has a quietness that makes my eyes heavy, which sounds like a Ralph Wiggum.
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
this movie has a quietness that makes my eyes heavy.
Yeah.
It does.
We opened the closet, and Richard Gere was in the closet, and they were making a baby, and I saw the baby, and it was a
Mothman. It looked
Mothman.
at me, and it was a Mothman. It's funny too because the second this movie was over, my eyes were fine. I looked away from it. I think the Mothman was trying to put me to sleep so he could.
I think you were probably
me.
affected way more by the Mothman than the rest of us. Maybe you're susceptible to Mothman magic.
Yeah,
true. Maybe I'm Richard
You should
Gere.
get a CAT scan.
Yeah.
Oh man, do I have a elastoblastemia or whatever?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Blinky blasky blobo on your brain.
Yeah. Chekhov's tumor.
I mean, all tumors are kind of Chekhov's tumor until
I
you get
guess so. Yeah.
until you get a brain scan. I want to tell you guys about a confusion that I had about sort of.
Oh, her name is Mary.
Oh, her name is Mary.
Wait, her name's not Married?
Married. The chemical plant itself is a red herring, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's no further questions.
Yeah. It's
No further questions,
you
Your
get
Honor.
you get really invested in the idea that chemical plants sound dangerous.
Right.
And the governor also going to be there. Is like, oh,
the governor's going to do a tour of the town. He's going to go to the
you think,
chemical
oh,
plant. And then he's going
the
to
chemical plant's going to explode and kill the governor.
Yeah.
Because
And then
before
it
we get to
doesn't
the
happen.
before we get to the bridge part, he like goes back. He like has that scene with the governor. He fucking gets that prophecy that's like there's gonna the Ohio River is gonna have a great tragedy on it, which we find out is the bridge. They keep talking about the fucking chemical plant, and then I was like, is there some sort of connection? Even when that final scene is happening with the bridge, I'm like, chemical plant when? But yeah, Gordon.
Well, you also made the point earlier, which I agree with you, by the way. I don't know if I fully told you that I agree with you, that in the marketing for this movie, they fucking showed the bridge collapsing so much in that that throughout my first watch when I was a kid in the theater, I was like, oh, it's going to be the bridge, because they keep showing the bridge throughout the movie, and I know the bridge is going to collapse, but they're not mentioning the bridge at all. So I'm constantly thinking about the bridge. And even on this watch, I was like, oh, the chemical plant is just a red herring. But that is the curse of this era of filmmaking and advertising for it. was like, you do or die in the theater, so you have to put money shots on
Yeah.
screen to get people excited to come see it. And
And
the
there's
unfortunate
no money shots at all except that.
Yeah. And the unfortunate reality of this movie, like you just said, is that there isn't anything else that you can really show other than like the weird unsolved mysteries flashbacks that are like vaguely kind of freaky. I can't imagine being the editor. Imagine like the trailer editor, and they're like, you can't show
What do
anything
we
from the
put in it?
bridge. And he's like,
Okay.
Okay.
Can I
Is it
use
Just wet
chemical
road
plant?
footage.
Yeah. It's gonna be
They're gonna think it's a wet road movie.
We have hundreds of hours of wet road footage. What do we
I
do
told
with
you several times we are not under the wet road genre. We can't do it.
It's like The Bear as a comedy.
You could probably make a comedy that is just the story is just the person trying to cut a trailer for the Mothman Prophecies without showing the bridge.
That's the movie.
Yeah.
Just to move things along a bit here, it's Christmas Eve. John realizes the Mothman prophecies point to a disaster at the Silver Bridge. He rushes to the bridge. Well, you're missing.
He doesn't.
He
He doesn't realize that though. He still thinks it's the chemical.
He gets a
plant.
call. Well, I want to talk about the fact that we get the call. He gets the call from Connie. It feels very much like we're supposed to wonder whether or not this call is real or Indrid Cold. But as soon as they cut to her and show her, you're immediately supposed to be like, okay, it's
her,
legit.
Yeah. I think that's a weakness of that scene, but I think it's also what else would they do? Really, that's a long conversation to have one side of the phone.
True, that's right. But also, why did later in the movie when he gets there and she's like, "Oh, you are here," and he goes, "Was that you on the phone?" And she's like, "Yes." I was like, "Did some people not talk to each other about these two parts of the movie?" Because
he would have got to the airport and been like, "She bought me a ticket," and they would have been like, "There's no record of her buying a ticket for you, sir," unless the Mothman is like, "Hello,
just one ticket, please."
4, 6, 8, 2, 9, 6, 5, 5.
Credit card number.
Credit card number.
Expiry date.
Yeah.
Never.
I prefer an
My name
aisle
on
seat.
the card is I cold.
Oh man. CSV 666.
Will there be a meal on the flight?
Oh, sir, there's no meals on flights.
I
that are
want
under
the
25
hot
minutes.
beef meal, not the vegetarian one, please. Yeah. Very dumb. Anyway, the bridge fucking collapses. He rushes to the bridge. Traffic very heavy on the bridge. We get 1,000 establishing shots of the bridge elements failing, which I was like, okay, enough. I get it. The bridge is going to collapse. The bolts are just popping out and things are snapping.
Hey,
forever.
I mean, it's good. I think the bridge collapse is good, but like also he doesn't realize that it's the bridge collapsing until he's there, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no up into this moment in the movie, there is not really any hint that the bridge is going to collapse, except for the fact that we, the audience, have seen them show the bridge 100
times. There is another really stupid part on that bridge. Do you guys know what it is? Well, I'll tell you.
Is it when TJ won't turn his radio off when he like
Yes.
when somebody's trying to get him to
And
his
they
attention?
telegraph, but here's the way it's done. They telegraph it from the point he turns the music on, right? All the stuff starts happening. Richard Gere's running, trying to tell people to get off the bridge. And he runs up to one car among probably 75 cars. And it's like, roll down your window, turn your music down. People can't hear me. Bro.
And then
Yeah,
he gets
fucking
sliced in half.
Whipped in half. Oh, wait. He probably got bisected.
Yeah,
Oh,
but this
wow,
wise,
in a car.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Inside
bisected
car.
in a car. I'll take it.
Yeah.
All right, put it on the ticket.
Yeah.
You know, it's Alex.
it
Once
in.
you get to 5, we buy you a meatball sub.
Yeah.
It's true. And you get your own collection on youtube.com/.
You get your own podcast on the UFP network. There's so many already, but you know. I wrote down for this part, oh no one can open their own car doors. Good thing
Also
Richard Gere
that.
is here to do it for them.
He's
just
pulling
running-
car doors off the cars.
There's a point where he leaps onto somebody's windshield and he's like, get off the bridge. It's like,
Yeah.
you really need to do that? That was crazy.
You'd be pretty frustrated if people were just still in their cars just honking.
Wow,
Or the
they're
one
like,
guy that's driving
"Oh."
into the back of the other car, like it's going to push
Yeah.
every car off
Yeah,
the bridge.
he freaks out and just
I
crashes.
hope that guy died.
My note for that one is Grandpa is a maniac driving all over the place into people and over people. He definitely he drowned for sure.
Yeah, he's fucked.
Maybe he just like maybe he knew that he's like, there's no way in hell I'm getting off this bridge with these old things, and looking at his legs. So he's like, let's put the pedal to the metal. TJ's a fucking idiot. Turn down your damn music, you crackhead, is what I wrote.
We skipped over the part where he has the call from Connie. I glossed over the part where Connie's like, Mary's not going to call you on the anniversary of her death. And Richard Gere, John is going like he's losing his fucking mind at this point, and he will not accept that he's probably not going to get this call from a person. But he gets off the phone with Connie, and the phone rings, and he smashes the phone he unplugs it and bursts it to bits, which I was like, that could have just been like anybody calling you on Christmas.
No, it was the Mothman.
It was his boss. You coming to the? I gotta have my star reporter at the Christmas.
You coming to this bridge or what?
Yeah, what's it gonna look like if I don't have my star reporter?
Yeah,
But no,
it's Connie calling. The reservation for the flight is under I cold.
But he doesn't destroy the phone. He does rip it out of the wall, but then the phone starts ringing still afterwards, being like, "Ooh, Mothman magic." He's on the other line. But yeah, this is his moment of like burying his trauma, and like it's like him finally moving past the death of his wife. Him rejecting the call from the Mothman is him being like, no, even if you do put my wife's voice on the end of this phone, it's not going to be her as I knew her. It's going to be her from some alternate reality, or it's going to be her you disguised as her, or her from the past, or something.
And thank God that he didn't answer, because he would record it, and then we'd have to get another scene with him with his audio guy being like, no, this is definitely not coming from human vocal cords. And then his buddies in the corner doing this with the glasses.
The movie's pushed to 2:15 because he answered that fucking call. Fuck. I also made a note that while they're on the bridge and all this shit is happening, I wrote fucking chaos. Everyone is stupid, which everyone is the
but
dumbest.
if some guy came up to you on a bridge and was like, the bridge is falling, get off the bridge, you'd be like, Say hi to Paul
bridge is
McCartney
visibly failing is the thing. Like you can look out and see that the tension wires are going berserk. There's bolts flying out. I wanted to ask you guys if you knew, is this a miniature at parts they used to crash this bridge?
You know, I don't know. It looked pretty good. Like it looked like
I thought that the whole
collapsed.
I think it's like it might be the best part of the movie, like as far as like a special effect and like the weight of what's happening. A lot of this movie
of the Silver Bridge was actually filmed at Cananning Bridge in downtown Kittening,
in Pennsylvania.
In Pennsylvania, yeah. So they filmed on a real bridge, and
they tore the bitch down.
Yeah, they tore it down. It was probably a pretty expensive scene. Gee whiz.
Or it was like that scene in The Rise of Leslie Vernon where they just had an old bridge they were going to wreck anyway.
Right. Or The Rise of Skywalker where they had to burn all those old sets of Star Destroyers and they just decided to do it on film.
Or Revenge of the Sith where they killed all those little kids.
Yeah. They shot
or
inside of a real
Godzilla with Matthew Broderick, where Godzilla breaks a bridge.
Or like they saved money because Hayden Christensen decided he was actually going to light himself on fire at the end of the film. So he just did it on camera to save some.
The reason why he didn't come back into movies for so long is because he had to get major reconstructive surgery over the course of 20 years.
You can barely tell.
You can barely tell.
All right. So yeah, and then we get the everyone dies thing is fine, and he saves her from the water.
Saves her. Yeah.
That was like, you know, kind of nice. I was like, okay, good. I'm glad that he saved her.
It's like he goes through quite the gauntlet to take a situation where it's not like she was the only one who was going to die and he saved her. That would be 100% of the people saved. It's not like 37 people were going to die and he saved them all. But it's like 37 people were going to die and he saved one. Like he saved like
He might have
3% of the people that
I
were going to
thought
die.
that was a little goofy. That
he may have
like,
saved more because people were getting out and running off the bridge. There's a chance that the death toll
Yeah,
could
I
have been
suppose.
higher.
I
I
don't
think
know.
the
This
main
movie
issue with
kind
the
of
scene,
main character
insinuation was
syndrome.
that 37 were going to die, and she
Yeah.
was going to be one of them.
right? But they never say total. Like she's just referred to as 37, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
So people were going to die after her?
Yeah, there could have been number 40, 48,
Yeah,
50.
Sure, yeah.
It's very reminiscent
TJ
of the
was
Fright
clearly
Night,
number
too.
one. All right, TJ, you're number one. The Mothman keeps telling him. He's like, the Mothman keeps telling me I'm number one.
Oh, you're number one,
Yeah.
TJ.
If the Mothman says it, it must be true.
His ears are bleeding. I'm number one. I'm number one.
You know, McDoyle, I have a feeling your whole family's going down.
He was the quarterback for the Virginia Tech Mothmen. He was number one.
Yeah. He's doing chapstick commercials.
Yeah. Just chapping
I think the
his
biggest
under eyes. He's like, it works for under your eyes as well.
I
If
think
you have
the
an
biggest
eye wound that won't heal, chapstick.
chapstick.
So
I think the biggest twist in this movie is that they reveal at the very end it's based off a true story. I could not find. There's 5. Wait, this is based on a true story. 5 question marks in my notes.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's the bridge collapse is a real thing, and then someone wrote a book about it.
47 people died in the real bridge collapse. Why'd they change that?
Maybe they probably changed names, locations, and numbers just to be like, we don't want to, have it hit too
Change a
close
4
to
a
home.
3, and then it's like, then now that's sensitive.
Yeah.
I don't understand. I think it's like probably
A butterfly man told someone that the bridge was going to collapse in real life.
Yeah. Ironically enough, the true story of the Mothman is very similar to the movie The Butterfly Effect, and the Butterfly Effect is really similar to this. Yeah.
But like you can see that you can compare and contrast the two films as far as prophecies go,
Yeah. And Nicolas Cage's Knowing.
Yeah.
Also,
is that another one about?
It's also like, I don't know. His son writes a bunch
like
of
a praying mantis. The praying mantis comes and is like, and you're like, oh shit, fucking 9/11's gonna happen.
That's exactly the story. Have you seen it?
Nope. I mean, yep.
Yeah, praying mantis is scratching dates on a chalkboard.
Can only do the 11 note, and it looks like
Nicolas Cage plays a custodian at a primary school, and he's like, this praying mantis keeps coming in here every day and writing numbers on the board, and I don't know what to do about it.
Numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That was a reference to that. Okay. So that's the end of the film. So I guess all there's left to do is, according to my notes, talk about the Home Alone of it all.
If you had to pick one,
what do you think the Home Alone of it
is
all?
the Home Alone of it all?
Can someone please tell me when the Home Alone?
I really gotta know.
When is the Home Alone of it all?
What is the Home Alone of it all? Now that's the Home Alone of it all.
I think it's always a funny visual when the guest is left 100% alone. I'm acknowledging it because it's funny. At any rate, the Home Alone of it all, of course, is the notion that in the film, in the major motion picture Home Alone, everybody went to see that movie to see what would happen to the robbers of the house. They wanted to see Kevin McAllister slap down that blueprint and booby trap the home so that Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern would get basically decapitated in a cartoonish fashion. In a lot of films, I have found that you can sort of find that beat the moment you came to see, or sometimes it manifests as the third act. Sometimes it's just the trailer moments. Excuse me. This is going to be tricky, I think. As we do on this show, the guest always goes first. So, Alex, you've been watching this movie since probably 2002.
Yeah.
What's your home? You understand the concept of the Home Alone of it all. You've been here a couple times.
Yeah.
What's your Home Alone of it all for the Mothman Prophecies?
I gotta say, in my mind, the big scene for me is literally the chapstick. So it's like, and when I'm watching the movie, I'm waiting for it. And also, when I watched it for the first time, that was where I was like, okay, the Mothman knows something that no human person could know. That's the revealing of the omnipotency, and that lends credence to the prophecies of the Mothman. That's when I believed in the prophecies of the Mothman, because I was like, whoever on the phone, and in my mind, Ingrid Cole and the Mothman were synonymous. I wasn't aware that they were a separate entity, or supposed to be. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, the Mothman sees the chapstick and knows.
Yeah.
And
Well, I mean, in this, he is the Mothman.
he is, I guess,
Yeah,
in the movie, in the context of the movie, he is.
Yeah.
But so for me, that was when I was like, okay, shit's getting real. Now it's time to start believing the Mothman all the time. And that's when I was kind of like, yeah, the Mothman's real. You know what I mean? Listen to the conspiracies and all
He's
this.
here. Close the borders.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I would say that was the moment for me.
Yeah.
Great, man. No, that makes sense. How about you, Steve?
I mean, I have to agree. Like that's close to what I was going to say as well. I think it was the phone call. As weird as it is, it's also the moment where the movie starts to sort of meander and fall apart for me. But like, it is the moment where the prophecies are confirmed. This is an entity beyond our understanding. But I think my secondary one would be when he is having the realization that something has happened to him, where the mystery really starts to unfold on itself. And we realize there's more to this than meets the eye, and we're in for a real mystery. So the part, basically the map, where he's like, oh, right near the border, and
with
he's
Ohio,
like, over here, way over here. That's probably where my interest is peaked, and I'm excited to see where it goes after that.
That's great too. For me, I'm gonna go kind of old school, and I think the way that it's telegraphed sort of through the whole movie, and the way that I remember this movie, I think I'm gonna go bridge sequence.
Yeah.
And it's a little different because it's not it for once in my analytical brain, it's not the like plot that has anything to do with it. It's that the next time I watch this, if ever, I'm going to just be waiting for that last like chaotic 10 minutes on the bridge, because it has the most interesting set piece. It has the most interesting things that happen to people on a more actiony kind of level. And I already know the whole story now of the movie. Now just get to the fucking part where a guy gets whipped by a CGI rope that's actually made of rebar.
Yeah.
I mean, if this movie was made today, it would open with him having a Mothman prophecy in his bed of the bridge being ripped apart like immediately. So you'd have to be in on the whole time.
You'd get that scene of like we start at the bridge during it, and it's like, I guess you wonder how I got the kind of trope.
Or we'd have like a real Batman villain style Mothman, where he'd be showing him a million different prophecies, and he'd have to be figuring out which one's the real one. So the chemical confusion would happen.
He'd be driving down the road. I never believed in the Mothman at first.
Yeah.
That's that would, and then it's like a highway, and you see the moon in the distance,
super wet.
It pans down to a fucking street light with a million moths around it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I like that, guys.
We should rewrite the Mothman prophecies, guys. Make it a noir detective, like Sin City style story.
We'll
I
find the
think-
guy that did the music video for Hotline Bling, and we'll get him in here.
We'll find the guy who made the music video for the Mothman Prophecies. We'll just get him back.
Just get him back to do it. All the promotional material that you made for this episode, Steve, was all in black and white. I thought it was going to be a bit more noiry, but it's not. It's just Richard Gere losing his mind for 2 fucking
The reason
hours.
for that is because our original guest, his photo is a very noir looking picture, so I was matching it all to his sort of headshot picture. But yeah, kind of works in an alternate reality. In a Mothman style future, there's a different version of this movie where it's way more stylized and visually different.
I look forward to you adjusting the contrast on the Harry and the Hendersons to be more noir. In a world.
That's true. It's so colorful. All the promo stuff I did for it's like every color in the rainbow is utilized. Because like the title of Harry and the Hendersons is like an actual rainbow surrounding the title.
Literally all the primary colors, and then great. Well, before we get out of here and get to our final thoughts, let's play a little game.
It's time to play Guess the MPAA.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jack Mathman, the Mothman Prophecy Man. That's my given name that they gave me at birth. And of course, this is the MPAA rating guessing game. I'm going to pass it over to my co-host, Stephen Mothman, to give you the rules.
My name is Stephen Mothman, and I'm here to tell you that we are looking for a 3-digit number between 000 and 999. These 3 digits are, of course, the last 3 digits of a 5-digit number that is the MPA rating number. We need a guess between 000 and 999. Alex Gow, why don't you start us off?
Well, hold on. Before we get to that, I have to give you the first 2 numbers of the 5-digit number because it's of no consequence. And this week, the first 2 digits are 38. So you just have to give us a number between 000 and 999. Alex Gow.
Well, if the first 2 are 38, then the rest are 765.
That's incorrect. Steve, lower.
I'm going to go with 300.
Higher. Alex.
I'm going to go with 465.
Steve, higher.
500.
Alex, for your final guess, it's higher.
666.
Steve, for your final guess, it's lower.
632. Ooh. Ah. Such a we should get that.
Get that on here. Yeah, they do the new Chucky laugh. No, this week it was a very compelling, intriguing number. The number this week was 38652. So Steve was pretty close.
The MPAA, everyone. The MPAA. Wow.
I was only 14 off.
Unfortunately, it is not. Oh, maybe it should be fucking. Say. I almost said Saved by the Bell. Price is Right rules. Maybe we should. Season 3 is coming up. We're gonna rework the game and figure it out. But now let's go to our final thoughts.
Oh no, I can't find it. There we go.
It's time for our final thoughts.
Just like at the beginning of the show, Alex, at the end of the show, the guest always goes first. So why don't you give us your final thoughts for the film, The Mothman Prophecies? And if you want to give it a rating, whether it be out of 5 or out of 10 or some nonsensical made up joke rating, the floor is yours to tell us about it.
Okay. This is a movie that I think I like more than it deserves, because it's just rooted in kind of like a comfy, like early teenage bonding with my brother watching it and just kind of almost just joking about it a lot with him and just enjoying it as a movie. All in all, it definitely drags in the second half, and reflecting on it, I can think of things that I don't like the audio technician guy, and the crazy guy is a little bit too crazy in like over exposition. But all in all, it's a good flick. I enjoy it. I would probably, if I was going to give it a rating, it's not deserved, but I would give it 36 out of 37 potential drowning victims.
Very good.
That is good. That is good. All right, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, I was bored the first time I watched it. I don't really remember the second time I watched it. And the third time I watched it, I really like the first half. I think it's extremely strong, but it just doesn't hold up for me. And a lot of the logic of the movie itself is sort of folding inward on itself and piercing itself and making it difficult to follow for the sake of making it difficult to follow, because you're supposed to be confused. You're supposed to be as confused as the characters in the movie, which I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. So I don't think it's a terrible movie, but I do think that it is something that you have to be in a very particular mood to sit down and enjoy. And Jason, I think that watching it in 2 chunks on your lunch break at work is probably not the best scenario to watch a movie like this.
What about watching it in your imagination? When you decide to do a podcast on it 2 hours before the podcast.
Yeah, that's probably the best way. And just remembering all of the good parts with your brother.
Yeah.
I was going to say, what about imagining another version of yourself in another dimension, watching it and enjoying it and talking about how much you liked it? Whoa. But if I was to give it a rating, I would probably give it the title of a confusing entity that lives inside of your phone and in your drain pipes. Or if it gives you the feeling of being on a bridge that's collapsing while trapped inside of a car and not being able to remember how to open the door of your car to get out and save yourself. That's my rating.
Whoa. When you said phone, I looked down at my phone.
Whoa.
Prophecy.
Mothman.
I will say before so when I write my reaction as soon as I finish the movie, so it's going to be a little bit scathing, but I will say, Alex, thank you for coming on, because this couldn't have ended up in a better situation. What a fucking kismet sort of experience that I've had.
I had the one guy that likes Mothman Prophecies and remembers the movie.
In our chat that has like 7 people in it, in a world where fucking, I feel like nobody's really seen this movie, but I had a very enjoyable experience talking about it with you, which that's a 10 out of 10. But what a whatever movie. It was fine. I liked its weird dream like ethereal bits, but I had a hard time keeping my eyes open for it. Something about the score / background sounds made me tired. I did like Laura Linney's performance, and Richard Gere was also good. I've never really seen a Richard Gere movie, which is true. I think the target demo for this movie was 45 to 65-year-olds in the 90s, which was a very different kind of person. This kind of person that can't believe what they are seeing.
What? I can't believe what my 45-year-old eyes are seeing.
Yes, the whole time I think
where's Will?
Yeah, we made it. You guys were joking about it earlier. Like, what's going on? How's that? He's married.
You're gonna have to start bumping that age though too. You're getting close to 40.
I'm gonna be 25 forever. I say.
Yeah.
I did give it a 2.7 out of 5, which is a pretty commendable rating, because it's not like a bad movie. Like, at the end of the day, it's fine. Like, it's fine.
There's nothing egregious about it. it is fine. Yeah,
It's got some dumb logic. It's got some pretty stupid
it's got this one line at the beginning
parts.
where he's like, "She's not even married."
Yeah,
Not even
yeah.
close.
I also not that bad, serviceable. I give this movie. I thought there was an owl in it, and there should have been.
3 out of 4 kinds.
I like how like you thought that the movie called The Mothman Prophecies, the symbol of the Mothman coming was an owl. You're like in the Mothman shows up, but first you see an owl, not a moth,
Listen.
not a moth at all.
I don't know what happened. I think my brain short
You
circuit.
thought
I
it was
mean,
the
barn
Mothman.
owls and like the iconography of this Mothman shit. I guess you could. I can see where your wires got crossed.
They got wings, don't they? And then you thought it was Batman. They got wings.
Yeah.
you
I
know?
think the stupidest
aliens
part of it is that we did the fourth kind like 6 months ago.
Yeah, and you thought that this movie was that movie, even though you just watched that movie.
It made me really reflect on the fact that I thought, even back then, I don't think I mentioned the Mothman Prophecies, but I think it was great to have the catharsis of realizing that that movie we already did was a movie that was the wires were crossed with this movie back then. I think ultimately is what happened. But yeah, 2.7 out of 5.
It's nice that they're both crossed off the list.
You're safe now.
Yeah.
So I guess that's that. Hey everybody, have you heard the news? It's about Butcher Pete. We should probably get a little sting for this. There's a couple stings I'm going to be talking to you about, Steve, but we'll talk about that offline. Alex, do you have anything?
That's the sting.
That's the sting. Alex, do you have anything you want to promote? Or if you don't have anything to promote or plug, do you have a message for the universe?
Do not take life advice from Mothmen. All right. Sometimes when you see ET in your bedroom, you're just sleepy. All right. And if you see Mothmen, get your brain scanned. You probably have a tumor.
Yeah. You got gyroplasty surgery.
You got a gyroscope in your brain, and you got to get it fixed.
I have vaginoplasty, and well, thank you, Alex, for coming on. You're the second guest in history to come on in such a pinch that it's comical that you were even able to step up to the task.
Yeah.
On this incredibly famous and doing well podcast. Please come back as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
We'll have you back real quick.
For sure.
Steven, Mothman, what do you have to promote this week?
Yeah, check out Darth Theorist. We're growing every day. I've got a couple of videos on there that I've edited now, and I'm happy about them. So you should check them out and give them likes and comment and subscribe and watch us all the time because it's great. Other than that, not a lot of news this week. Not a lot of news. Over to you, Jason.
Hey. I would like to tell everybody to watch Hey, Did You See This One? Each and every week on Twitch and YouTube and Facebook live at 8 p.m. Eastern time. I think that's pretty much it. I do announce, I am a professional wrestling announcer for the promotion in Toronto known as Super Kicked. We had a show 2 weeks ago now, last Friday, in fact, where, thank you. And it went very well. And it was a very good show, and it's always a great show. And you can find those over at Super Kicked on, if you just search Super Kicked, SuperKick''D on YouTube. You can find all the videos. I'll even prove that I do it. Some people are like, yeah, right. And I'm like, well, there's proof. And that's something
somebody doesn't believe you.
Well,
point them out to me, Jason. I'll
Super Kick deniers.
Yeah.
You'll body slam them through a table, brother.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, just watch this show. And if you're not watching it, what are you doing? You can find us on all social media at Hey, Did You See This One? Pretty much. Actually, pretty much. We got off all of those weird X sort of sites. So you can just find us on YouTube and Facebook, and anywhere else, Twitch, anywhere else that you get your podcast, Spotify. We're on Spotify. Did you see this one? And as just a final, do you want me to do the final little bit here, Steve? You want me to do the
yeah, because I never know when you're going to stop talking, so it's easier if you do it.
It's true. I talk a lot.
It's very hard.
I'm coming, brother. Almost there. That's me coming to the rescue.
Yeah, I'm going to use that for nefarious means. But that said, Alex, there's a very important question that has to be asked each and every week. Could you go ahead and ask that for us right now?
Hey, did you see this one?
Some folk will never eat a skunk, and then again some folk will.
Like
Whoa.
Cletus,
Cletus, the slack-jawed yokel.
Do you guys think that Cletus believes in the Mothman?
I
I think Cletus has seen the Mothman for sure.
Definitely. I also wonder if this entire scenario could have been solved by side airbags.
It was. Do you see that car? That was an old car.
It's true.
What kind of airbags?
Side airbags. Beam up some Star Trek content with Live Long and Podcast. Tune in to X-Rated, the X-Men animated review show. Artistic interviews with graphic histories. A roundtable movie discussion with Hey, did you see this one? And movie reviews with Hold Up, a movie podcast. And while you're at it, spin a few records with Eamon on Track. Watch us duke it out on trivial debates. And let's chat about TV with the Super Mater Brothers. It's all here on the United Federation of Podcasts.